call this meeting to order. Roll call. Vicki.
Cantrell?
Here. Sue Kinney.
Present.
Petey.
Here.
Strand. Alice. Hanley.
Here.
Peggy Bullmeister. Here. Bonnie Lee Babb.
Here.
Joyce Anderson.
Here.
And Gwen Matthew, I'm present. First of all, any old business? Mr. Wheeler, do you want to give us a
I'd like
kind of
to
an
thank you,
overview?
Madam Chair. One, we are recording this. It would be really helpful if people, when they're asked to speak or have the opportunity to speak as clearly and loudly as you can. Don't mumble and speak softly like me, but speak loud so that the recording can pick you up. Number two, this is really unusual for the commission. And because of that, I've given them, in the clerk's office, I've given them paper that they're not used to having because generally speaking, the elections are pretty routine and they don't have much in the way of challenges. Last year, for example, even though it was very confusing and complicated because of the issue with the number of ballots, there really was only the one challenge for one voter. So please bear with us and bear with the commission as we work through this, because this is going to be something that's new to all of us in terms of the way we proceed forward. We think we have a pretty good set of guide material for them to work off of. But there may be points where we may have to pause or take it at ease while we consider a question and issue and try to figure out what's the best way to proceed. The goal here is to make sure that anybody who has a challenge is heard tonight so the commission can make a decision on that challenge and formally document that decision. So for every challenge, we'll try to make sure that the commission discusses it, has got the information it needs, including taking the time to look at the state's computer information if it needs to confirm state registration data. And the commission will take a vote. If people have a continuing objection to that decision that they want to maintain in case they decide they want to go to court, then we'll note that continuing objection, but we'll continue to move forward to the next challenge and try to work through this process as quickly as we can, but also as fairly as we can. If you have a challenge to make, please try to confine your issue to 3 minutes, so make sure everybody has time. And if we have enough time, it moves pretty quickly, we can allot more as needed. Please try to be respectful to each other and to the commission, and so we can move through this as civilly as possible. With that, Madam Chair, I don't know if you have any open remarks. I don't have a particular plan in terms of which challenges you want to take first. I think there are some issues that we should cover, and that is the commission has made some preliminary decisions through the course of its work regarding whether to include or not include certain ballots. And we have tried to track that in this summary decision document that I handed out. And so what I've done here is I've got the code on the front that we use, and on the back of that page and the third page is sort of a general ABC category of why certain ballots are rejected or rejected in part. I've given you a place to sign off at the end of the night in terms of these categories of rejection. We can make modifications to this as we need to. This is not your final report. Okay, your final report will come after the count is done and after the hand count on Saturday. This is just sort of a placeholder for decisions you make tonight, so that the parties listening know where you stand on these issues and have a document to point to. And of course, in the middle, I have the rejection sheet, and the municipal clerk's office has also provided you a second copy of that, probably better organized than mine, and whichever one you feel most comfortable with using. They're the same, but it's just different ways of organizing it by last name or reject code. The third document is a table, or a series of tables that the state uses to decide whether ballots are rejected or counted, and it pretty much follows the same thing that you guys have done for years, and including what you've done over the last few days in terms of how you treat ballots. The main thing is that we don't do primaries, and we don't do presidential elections, so I've taken that material out of these tables. The other difference we're going to get to when we start talking about a particular kind of challenge, and that has to do with whether or not the election official has signed the envelope. We'll get to that. There's a difference there between what the state does and what our code allows.
I have a point of question. Are these the people that we have rejected, or is this just an example of those?
So these are the ones that you have rejected. And what we want to do is, because you've made those preliminary decisions, prior to public canvass, we've provided it here so that you can take a formal vote now on those preliminary decisions that you've made. Because now what happens is somebody who wants to challenge can make that challenge to you. And if there's good grounds for you to change your decision, you can do that with a vote by a majority and we'll change it.
Okay. How
Before you start, Gwen, I'm Barbara Jones, the municipal clerk, and I would like to thank you all very much. The Election Commission has been working incredibly hard since the week before the election and even worked a little bit on your procedures before that. And I really do want to thank you. I know that today especially has been exhausting for some of you. It's been a very long day. And I really do sincerely thank you for the work that you do for the clerk's office and for our community. Thank you. I know that you're doing your best, and I know that this is very difficult to have this type of scrutiny, but I know that the work that you've done is because you're really committed to this process, and I thank you.
How I'd like to handle this, I would like to take this group by group, so that if we go on the first of the list there, the AL, which signifies arrived late, I'd like to pull those out of the crate. And Peggy, if you could help me on that. Go through each one.
Just as a group.
Yeah.
Is that it? That's it?
We have 4 envelopes that arrived late. Is it necessary for me to name off names or anything like that? I don't think so, is it?
Well, we don't know if those folks are in the audience. I have a spreadsheet. We could certainly do that. I don't think there's a reason not to. In this case, it's Bobby Ferris, Frederick Boness, James Obermeyer, Karen Boness.
We have another, where is, okay. Can you put them in order so I can, we have another one, Dominic DiMartino.
Madam Chair, could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Excuse me, we have another one here, Dominic DiMartino. May I take
Arrived late.
All of these arrived late. We have one that arrived that has no postmark and arrived the day after. We have one that, same, the 11th, the 8th, the 8th. This one was the 3rd, but it had no postmark on it.
So, under your, here's the thing that's interesting about municipal code. There's a code provision, and I gotta figure out where it is, but I believe what it says, it has to be postmarked on before the day of the election. You're saying arrived late. Can you be more specific, because I can't see what you're looking at.
This envelope, the other ones arrived, have a postmark.
Let's deal with one at a time, so we have it clear.
Okay.
Go ahead and say the name of the person, and then we'll deal with the information that you have.
Bobby Ferris has no postmark, arrived. We have a municipal stamp of April 3rd, which means it was the day after the election, but there is no postmark on it. You want us to take these by the group or individually?
Well, the question is, that earlier today you talked about an envelope that was not postmarked, but you had confirmed that the witness signatures had happened before the election date, on or before the election date. And it arrived in the clerk's office before the public session of canvass, which is now. And in that particular case, I think you decided, as a preliminary matter, you were going to count that vote. So the question is, do these fall into that same category where the witness dates are on or before the election? There's no postmark, but you now have it in hand before the public session of canvass, which is right now.
Correct.
So
Now, can we reconsider this? This one has the witness signed it a different date. Can we take that into consideration as well?
The witness signed from a different date than the voter, that's a separate issue and maybe a separate basis to reject the ballot.
Okay. So that,
The witness signed it on the day of the election.
on the day of the
What date
election.
did the voter sign?
We don't know.
The witness signed it.
The voter doesn't sign, the voter does not date it.
Okay, all right, so, but the witness signed it when?
The
On
day
second-
of the election.
The day of the election.
The, so a date mark for the voter, based on,
It appears that these are hand-carried in U.S. Postal Service, the dates on it.
so the code requires an absentee ballot may not be counted if, under number 4, the ballot if mail is not postmarked, or number 5, the ballot is not received before the public session of canvass. Okay. Here, you have the ballot envelope has no postmark. This is number 6. Ballot envelope has no postmark and is received after election day. So
This
that's
is the,
independent-
bear with us, this is the first time we've seen all these sheets.
So it's, your code section is 2880.040, it's in the front of the document that I gave you. Right in the middle of the page, ballot review standards. 80.040B, number 6. The ballot envelope has no postmark and is received after election
Correct.
day.
An absentee ballot may not be counted if the ballot envelope has no postmark and received after the election day.
Correct.
That is the case with this vote.
So under the code, that would be a rejected ballot.
A rejected ballot. That is why we reject it. Now, do we need to confirm with the commission on each one of these? Do you want us to confirm with each, as a consensus with these?
Since you're taking them individually, yes, you need to vote. Make a
Okay.
motion and vote.
This was a reject?
Okay, the vote is 8-0 to reject.
Okay.
That was Mr. Ferris.
Mr. Ferris, Bobby Ferris.
Okay.
Okay, this one has no postmark. It was received in the office on April 8th, 6 days after the election. I vote to reject.
And what's the name, please?
Frederick Bonus.
Okay, should we have a motion to reject
Oh,
it?
okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to reject?
So
I move that we reject the ballot of Frederick Bonus.
Has arrived late. Hands?
Do we need a second?
Reject? What?
Second to the motion.
Oh, do we second it?
Second to the motion.
It
Okay.
helps us, certainly when you get into really formal boards and commissions, there's always a motion and second. If you don't mind, it'd be great.
All right.
Yeah.
All righty. The motion has been moved and seconded to reject this ballot on the basis there was no postmark and it was received after Election Day. Yay?
Yay. Reject.
Nay?
To reject, okay, the vote is 8-0 to reject.
This one is the same thing, no postmark. It arrived, the date stamp at the municipality, that's on the 8th. Do I hear a motion?
And the name, make sure you say the name.
Okay, Karen Bonus. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second the motion.
I vote to reject this ballot on arrived late. Vote to reject.
All right, the vote is 8-0 to reject.
All righty. Dominic DiMartino. It does have a postmark of April 10th, and it was date stamped in the office of 11, on the 11th. Therefore, neither one was before the elect, do I have a motion?
I move that we reject the ballot of Domino DiMartino.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I vote to reject this ballot, arrived late.
The vote is 8-0 to reject. Could you give us
Okay.
the spelling of the last name so it's not on our spreadsheet?
Bimartino.
Thank you.
Okay, they're counting our votes, so make sure your hand is looking that way, okay? Was there one that was missing?
There is an additional one that was received by fax, James Obermeyer.
Okay, we do not have the, I don't know that we have the fax ones with us.
Oh, yes, we do.
Is there anything that, so there's nothing on this list that demarcates it as fax, so you will have to let us know.
How do you want to do this?
More explanation?
Because there's ballots in here.
Because there's what?
Oh, there are ballots in here. There's ballots in here.
Okay. So under the code for faxes, there's an acknowledgement that the votes may be visible by people who need to remove and look at the envelope. That includes the commission, okay?
All right.
So you will see that, but you're under an oath under your obligation not to disclose how the vote is voted.
Okay. And what name am I looking for?
Obermeyer?
You
Okay,
may
here it
just
is.
be able to, can you pull out just the fax cover sheet?
Can we just do this?
Is that it?
This is the, this is the ballot, this is the mail-in. This is the fax. Why is it a fax when it was not?
Okay.
Sandy doesn't know.
Sandy?
I can just explain that. We did a by mail ballot for him, and he chose to fax it back to us, but he also voted his by mail, we believe, and mailed it back.
So we have two different ballots.
And they were both late.
Okay. So could you identify for the record the dates, the date the fax ballot came in for the record?
Okay, the fax ballot.
I think the time is at the top on the original that he faxed back.
Would you mind coming up here and showing me on this part?
It may not be.
The time date stuff from the
Is that
municipality?
Let's see here. It would be, this is his application, so the ballot is in there.
Yeah. Okay,
Can you see that?
okay. Okay. I mean, you can see it, but
Yeah.
I don't
The
think.
TV cameras.
Exactly.
It's right up here. The time,
Indication.
the time is right here. That he faxes back into us.
Okay, the faxed in time was on the 2nd at 11:04.
11:04
That is PM?
PM?
PM.
Okay. So under the code, look at the second page of the document I gave you, the middle of the page, 286060, voting by electronic transmission. A voter who returns the absentee ballot by electronic transmission must comply with the same deadlines as for voting in person on or before the closing hour of the polls. So that fax should have come in no later than 8 o'clock.
Okay. We also have the mail-in that was postmarked by the post office on the 3rd of April, received in the office on April 8th. Do I hear a motion? These
So
both, or is these two different ballot things? I'm sorry,
We're just voting
I
on
move
one.
to reject the ballot.
do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
I vote to reject that ballot on the basis of arrived late.
The vote is 8-0.
Okay, is this part of that one as well? Okay, that is all one here. Okay. Moving right along, we are to the birth date ones. Alice, would you go for me? This is, has two issues in its birthday as well as the, and I don't see it there, it may be filed under resolution for election official. Okay. Nicola Wells. Where is that? It's right here. Okay, was unable to count your ballot because the question ballot was not, no, that's not it.
Oh, I thought you were looking at this one.
Okay, that's there as well. All right. Okay, was unable to count your vote because according to the code, you're not a qualified voter due to your age at the time of the election. So this person was not 18 at the time of the election. Do I hear a motion?
I move to reject the ballot of Nicola Wells.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
I vote to reject on the basis of birth date.
Okay, the vote is 8-0. Now, the next group you have on this list is under code IW, which is the envelope was not witnessed. And you've got a group there, quite a few. And maybe what we can do is, I'll read the names out and you can take action on them. I think they all have the same issue. If there's somebody who wants to raise a challenge to that, they could speak up. We'll
Okay,
take that challenge.
just a moment, I need
Yeah.
to find out the status of this.
We have one more.
We have one more on the birthday? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is different, it had two issues, that's not proper. Okay, that is no official signature. Can you-
Yes.
okay? All right, where are we? Okay. Okay, we have a group that are insufficient witness. Okay. We have how many there? Let's read off the names and I will find them and set them aside, make sure we have the correct count.
You want to go ahead and read out the names? of
Yes,
everybody?
please.
Okay. Donna Brown,
Yes.
Lyle Brown, Robert,
Just a minute. Okay,
Robert Deschine or Deschine,
okay.
Stephen or Stephen Reese,
Yes,
Patricia Billimek,
yes,
Irene Hurd,
yes,
James Rowland,
yes,
Corinne Rowland, George Olson,
yes,
Heiko Haber,
yes,
Getta Anderson,
yes,
Andrea Radford,
yes. All of these names had no witness to their vote. They are required, do you have a code for that one? Let's see. They're required to
Yes.
have a witness served.
In the middle of the first page, AMC 288040B, the absentee ballot may not be counted if, number 2, the official or witnesses authorized by law to attest the voter certificate failed to execute the certificate.
So we have no witness on these. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject this group of voters on the basis of the mail-in ballots were not witnessed.
Do I hear a second? I second. We vote to reject these?
The vote is 8-0.
The next group.
I'm looking there. No identifier. Could you go ahead and read off those names and?
The next group I think you have is the incorrect identifier or no identifier.
No identification.
Okay, and I have 3 here. Irene Tresser, Chucha Kim, Ambrosius Kim.
Yes. All three of these had no identifiers.
And Madam Chair, I understand Irene Tresser might be here.
Yeah, I'm here. I'd like to challenge that.
Yeah.
I gave my identifier
So, we have you guys have a copy, right?
of the,
Of the envelope?
yes.
Okay, and this is a copy of the envelope. And so, I guess what we should do is allow you to speak to that before you make a motion on her particular ballot.
So, I'm Irene.
Hi.
My driver's license number is 677794, and I wrote that down. And underneath, unless I just spaced it, and it says 600094. So, I had my driver's license with me, and I remember writing it down, but I suppose it's possible that I wrote this wrong. But this is my driver's license, and I showed up at Turnagain Elementary, and they said, oh, you're supposed to go across the street to the church, or you can fill out this form. So otherwise, I would.
You know, what we have on the envelope is 600094.
I have no
which is-
idea how that would have gotten onto the envelope that way.
That's all that's written there. We're sorry that we couldn't count your vote. We went to the trouble of looking it up and finding what your driver's license was, which we confirmed. Barbara?
Madam Chair,
I have
actually,
a question, yeah, I have a
Your
question.
birthday-
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, your birth date on your license looks like March 17, 1964.
Yeah,
Sorry
and
to
it's-
disclose that to everybody.
That's okay.
Okay. And on the envelope, I believe you have a birth date.
Yes,
What's the birth date?
3/17/64.
Okay. So, given that the first number of the license, the last two numbers of the license match, and you have another identifier, which is recognized, which is the birth date, you might also look at her signature. May I borrow your license?
Absolutely.
If you look at her license signature, at the bottom on the right, it looks very much similar to the signature on the envelope.
Yes.
So, Madam Chair, I think the commission has the discretion to,
Yeah, this
in fact,
one,
make an obligation to count this one.
that is, we've discussed this kind of one before, and in the case of a couple numbers being off, we have counted it. Do we want to
We can't
consider?
hear what you said
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry.
side.
We have the discretion when some of these numbers are incorrect. I didn't, people, they switch numbers, this kind of stuff, so we have the discretion, and that's correct, her birth date is on there. Do we want to reconsider that vote?
Birth date's correct.
The birth date is correct, and as,
I move that we accept it.
as Mr. Weaver said, the first letter is the same, the first number of the ADL is the same, and the last two are the same.
And the birth date is correct.
And you've matched
So-
the signature?
And we've matched the signature. So if you just pause a minute and think. Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we reconsider the ballot, the question ballot of Irene Tresser. Based on the fact that we have an accurate birth date, we've been able to match her signature, and that 3 of the numbers of the driver's license are identical.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, how many vote to accept this ballot?
Vote is 8-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Get your license. Your driver's license.
Thanks. Did you get it?
Yes.
Did you ever get They're out to interview.
Okay, on the other two, the Kim ones, we have no identifiers whatsoever.
And no witness.
And we were unable, we have no identifiers there.
And Madam Chair, this particular one, these were special needs ballots, I believe.
They are.
And so the personal representative needed to work with 2 voters to make sure that that information was captured.
Correct.
were no identifiers there.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, there were no identifiers, and this is particularly important when you do a special needs ballot where you have a personal representative who's going out to process these ballots on behalf of somebody who needs help. Maybe they're in the hospital or otherwise can't get to a precinct. So it's really, really important in those situations that you have those personal identifiers so that you don't have to worry about any sort of fraudulent vote gathering, if you will.
So do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject these ballots.
Second.
So those who vote to reject based on no identification?
The vote is 8-0.
Are we rejecting ballots or are we rejecting envelopes?
Does it matter at this
I'm
point?
sorry?
Are we rejecting envelopes or are we rejecting ballots?
Checking the ballots.
Okay, all right.
What's the next category?
No official signature.
The next batch, for those in the audience, relates to no official signature on the envelope. And there may be some people who want to raise challenges to these. I think there's at least 3 on the list, maybe 4, that one campaign brought to our attention by email today. So while we would normally want to handle those in a batch, we may have to read off the names and then see if there's any challenge and come back to them.
Okay.
Okay? I'll read off the names to you when you're ready.
Yes, please.
Ronald, it's either Brown Ronald or Ronald Brown, maybe the name got backwards there in the spreadsheet. The deputy clerk's going to look it up.
These are the right ones.
Did you have that one?
I cannot find that one. Ronald Brown or the other way around, right?
Right.
I do not have that. I do not have
You
it.
don't have that one? That one was question mark, we didn't find it. Sean Holland.
Yes, I have that one.
Kevin Vick.
Yes.
Tanya Newall.
Yes.
Linda Messolini.
Yes.
Andrew Collins.
Yes.
Manuel Mercado.
Yes.
Simon Newall.
Yes.
Thomas Crescent.
One moment. Yes. I have Ronald Brown.
And it's Ronald Brown on that.
Yes. Would you that? Is the what's that on? CD.
Luann Picard.
Yes.
Nancy Mintz.
Yes. That's what I have.
That's all I have on my list. Okay, so by way of explanation, the preliminary finding was that there was no official signature on the envelope. And under state law, the state changed its statutes in 2001, I believe it is, and they have actually made an exception in state law that says if the election official failed to sign, that wouldn't necessarily disqualify those ballots. We have not changed our code. Our code still requires the election official's signature. And so obviously people who are familiar with the state system recognize there's a difference. And unfortunately, we don't have the authority to waive our code requirement. But that's the issue. And I understand there's going to be some people who want to raise their challenges. Maybe what we could do is just see if, I'll just take whoever's first in order here is Mr. Brown here. How about Sean Holland? Kevin Vick? Tanya Newall? Linda Messolini?
Yeah, so may I speak?
Sure, if
Yeah.
you give your name for the record. please.
Yeah, Nick Moe. Linda was unable to make it, but she asked that a statement be read from her statement.
Okay, the issue here is whether or not the commission will be able to accept that as an official challenge, right? Because we don't know really that
Yeah,
you're
this is
authorized
an
to
official.
represent.
Yeah, this is an official challenge.
All right, I don't know that we can accept it for this hearing.
Okay, so she writes, I, Linda Messolini, voted for write-in candidate Nick Moe on election day. The precinct official did not sign my vote, which puts my right to vote for Nick into question. Please have this vote count. I was one of very few in Anchorage who actually took the time to vote, and I feel it is unconstitutional to take that right away because of a procedure that was not of my doing. Please call if you need further validation. My job prevented me from attending tonight. Thank you, Linda Messolini.
Okay, it's Mr. Collins, Andrew Collins, Manuel Mercado, Simon Newall, Thomas Crescent. Thomas Crescent?
Yeah.
Would you like to make the challenge?
Well, it's hard to know where to begin. I've been in this state for 48 years. I've been voting all that time. And I voted this time. I didn't do anything wrong. And I got a call from some nice lady with a nice voice that says that my vote is not being counted. And I don't think that's fair because I didn't do anything wrong. And somebody at the polls there at the senior center didn't sign, and I didn't know that. Didn't know he had to sign. Wouldn't have checked anyway. I don't know, what can I say? What can I say to make my vote count in this wonderful I'm embarrassing my wife. I can say a lot more, but I'll just hold it back.
May I
That's
say
it.
thank you for expressing yourself
And for coming.
and for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're both septuagenarians, and we drove all the way from Eagle River to get here. And, you know, this is taking some time out of our life for something that was not my fault.
We-
I think
we
it's very
certainly-
unfair.
We certainly know that. Shall we continue with the list?
Two more names to read off because they also want to say something. Luann Picard. Can't see minutes. Okay. So before you deliberate, make your decision. The code section is in the middle of that first page, 288040, ballot review standards. And these are question ballots, right?
No,
These are-
Thomas was absentee in person, and Linda was a question ballot.
Okay. So, for the question ballot, that's Linda.
Yes.
A2, an election official failed to execute the certificate. And for Thomas, under B2, the official or witnesses authorized by law failed to attest the voter certificate, failed to execute the certificate. Whatever your decision is going to be given a code, you're going to need to treat these all the same, right? So Linda's under a different code section, but the issue is still the same. The election official either failed to acknowledge it at the absentee location where that person went, or at the precinct on the question ballot. So you can't treat one of these different than the group.
I'd like to make a statement. This particular one was the hardest one that we had to deal with, because I believe that every single person on this board is with you. However, we have sworn in our office to uphold the code, which clearly states that if they do not sign it, we cannot count it. And like I said, it just about kills us here. Do I hear a motion? Somebody wants to move this one. Pardon me?
Have we finished with this category?
I believe so. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject this particular group of ballots based on the fact that they were not signed by an official witness, and that to abide by the code, we have no choice but to reject the ballots not signed by the official witness.
Do I hear a second?
Can I make a comment before the second?
Yes.
Go ahead.
To
to change this in the code, you have to go before the assembly. So I recommend somebody, I don't know the political procedure, and maybe you could help them if there was a question, so that it can be changed.
And it may be something you could note in your report to the assembly if you
plan
wanted
to.
to.
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
You can second. No?
I believe there was a
Somebody else
second
can
before she
There was
asked
a
to
second?
comment.
Oh,
No, there is no second.
there.
I'll
did you
second it. I'll second it.
I vote to, we vote to reject these that do not have the voters, the election official signatures.
Vote is 8-0. Now,
We have them all in the morning.
there may be a group or person who wants to maintain a continuing objection on that point, and I don't, if this is the time to make that known to us, if you would.
Yeah, we maintain a continuing objection to Linda's.
All right, so if we could note that.
And do we pull these?
I'm sorry, Mr.
President,
Yes.
yeah, you know me. I know you.
Yes.
Yes, I do object, and I feel as a citizen of the United States, I voted correctly, and I don't think that it's right to, and I don't hold these ladies, I realize you're working on a code, but I think it's a very unfortunate thing, because I voted correctly, and the only thing that's missing is that person's signature. So yes, I would like to protest, but I don't know what I should do.
I'm going to give you this form to fill out, and we'll keep that with.
And do you want us to pull these are
The two,
these are the
continuing.
envelopes?
You gotta keep it in the group. Okay,
Keep
that-
them in
that
the group.
of No official signature, they all need to be treated the same, so,
Okay. Right.
you get it.
All right.
Question from the press, how many are being rejected because of the lack of a signature by the official?
I'm counting 11 on this sheet.
And do we know where those are from? Can you disclose that, or?
No. Well, you mean from
Oh.
the precincts?
Yes.
If you want
He
to-
came from Eagle River, right?
Right, and if you want to make a public records request, we can do that. We'd like to keep moving, if you don't mind. It won't take us long to get that.
Okay.
Next group is what?
They're not registered.
Madam Chair, the next group is not registered.
Okay. Do we run down the names?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Tavis Mott Mindy.
I think it might be easier
Maybe you read.
if I read.
Yeah. there were a lot.
Anton Majev, M-A-J-A-E-V. Scott Ibarra. Michael Bassler.
Could you read them a little bit louder, maybe just?
Okay, I will, and when you find them, would you write check? Would you say
Yeah,
check?
I'm gonna, Devin's gonna do it.
Okay. Anton Majir, M-A-J.
Okay.
Okay. Scott Ibarra.
Okay.
Michael Bassler.
Got it.
Robert Hughes. Gonzalo.
Hold on.
Wait. She's waiting.
Got it.
Gonzalo Tolentino.
Got it.
Austin Martin.
Got it.
Deneg Theo, T-H-A-O.
Got it.
John Phillips.
Got it.
Desmona Brown.
Got it.
Renee Trudeau.
Got it.
Ed Harrigan. Julio Abren, Abren, A-B-R-E-N, looks like. First name starts with a J.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Eric Byrne.
Got it.
Yeah. Robert Santacada. Santacada. Caitlin. Sorry.
Got it.
Caitlin Asari.
What was that again?
Caitlin Asari. E-S-A-R-Y.
Got it.
Stanson Efoa.
I have a challenge to that one.
Real quick, there's an issue about the discrepancy of the name, and on the spreadsheet, it looks different than what maybe in fact on the envelope. I like that earlier. Oh, I like that other sheet, that's fine. Right here. Okay, so on your spreadsheet, I'm sorry, there's not a page number, but Afoa Stanson
Yes.
on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
And is that how it appears on the envelope?
Yes.
Last name.
The last name is Efoa.
Yeah, so it's backwards on here. Let's finish the list, and then we'll come back.
Gary Holthaus.
Got it.
Doug Olson. Thank you for coming. Tyler Talmadge.
What was the name again?
Tyler Talmadge. Got it? Tyler Norman.
Okay.
Lacey Strasberg.
Okay.
Tanis Montminy.
Pardon me?
Pardon me? Tanis Montminy.
That's the very first one.
Mitchell Wilder.
Okay.
Gladys Garcia.
Okay.
Leah Reusser, R-E-U-S-S-E-R. Violetta Nicolosia, Mosua.
Violetta?
Yes.
Okay.
And the last one is Corey Butler.
So we're just going to do a quick visual check to make sure that the
Alrighty.
names here that we did read off. Okay. That matches our list.
Okay.
All right, so the issue with these ones is, in many cases, either they're registered in Alaska but outside of the municipality, or we couldn't find any record of registration at all. And I don't know who's going to make the representation on behalf of the vote campaign.
Yes, my name is Michael Dunsmore. I have been, well, you all know me. I've been watching the ballot review process on behalf of the Nick Moe campaign. We have an objection, challenge to the rejection of what is written on the form as Afoa Stanson. I believe he was just not able to be found in the database for it being hard to decipher his name and information on the envelope. I believe his actual name is Stanley. His first name is Stanley, last name Afoa, F-O. Yes.
The birthday does not correspond with Stanley Afoa to Stanson.
If we could address that.
Can I?
Alice?
finish my-
Let him finish
Okay.
and then we'll take it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That, if that is the case, obviously, we will consider, we might withdraw our challenge. But from our research, I thought he was, I think he is Stanley Afoa. Voter ID number I have, is that public information I can fill out?
Voter ID number is normally confidential.
Okay. Then I
Please
will
don't read
read
that
off.
off.
And if he in fact is the Stanley Afoa, I do not think he should be rejected for a pure clerical error, and I would encourage you to give the database another look every night.
We're doing that right now.
And Madam Chair, if someone on the
Yes.
commission wants to speak.
Alice?
I personally know this young man, and I happen to be at
Which one? Is there more than one?
Stanson Afoa.
Okay.
His name is Stanson Afoa, and he is a senior at Diamond High School. And I happened to be at Diamond High School when he was voting, and I congratulated him on voting. But I see that his birth date makes him ineligible. But his name is Stanson, and it's not Stanley.
Okay, so she's trying to check and see what we have on Rams real quick.
We have written in the margin that we had a date of 4/8/13. I believe that's the date.
Madam Chair, I can't hear you.
Okay. I will hold my comments until we make sure.
Okay. And
I'm sorry. She can't pull it up on this computer. She's having problems.
having problems?
I can see.
Okay. All right. While we're waiting on that, is there any other challenge to this group of voters that does anybody wants to speak to this group right now? Okay. Mr. Dunsmore, do you have a question?
No, I was just maybe, if you could list the names again, there are a whole lot of them.
Sure, I'll read them off real quick. I'll try not to read them too badly. Let me look up this one here. Tavis Montminy, Robert Santagata, Ed Harrigan, John Phillips, Renee Trudeau. This one may or may not be first and last mixed up. Danang Tao, Lee Rooser, Doug Olson, Violetta Ipolowska, Gary Folthouse, Norman Tyler, Corey Butler, Mitchell Wilder, Desmona Brown, Gladys Garcia, Lacey Strasburg, Tyler Talmadge, Austin Martin, Julio Abreu, Eric Baroud, Afoa, and the name is again, we think either Stanson, which is what we have here. Caitlin Essery, Gonzalo Tolentino, Scott Ibarra, Michael Bassler, Robert Hughes, Anton Major. That was the last one, Anton Major. So, are you ready to speak to Afoa?
Stanley Afoa has a birth date in 1963, and Stanson Afoa has a birth date in 1994. They do, in fact, live at the same address, but the social security numbers also are different. So it appears that it's two separate individuals.
In your hands, Madam Chair.
We did looked at that one rather closely, several times. Do I hear a motion for the whole group? For the whole group?
I move that we reject the whole group
Based on not
Based
registered.
on not registered.
Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
I vote to reject.
The vote is 8-0.
What's the next one?
What's the next one?
Right, while we're getting ready to...
No ongoing challenge.
Thank you.
Gary Holthouse, he is the current minister of the Unitarian Church, and he lived here before. and he just moved back to take the job at the Unitarian Church. So he may have been registered prior.
It's too late. They voted.
Someone who would need to represent him and make the challenge, so, okay.
What is the next group? PL? PL.
LP? My LP?
The next group is postmark late.
We're looking for that file.
This has to be. Get that put in.
No, this is- we are, I found it. What is it?
Here, it's under PL. Okay. We made a good one. It was LP and PL.
Okay.
So do
You want to read off, go ahead, you read off the names.
Want me to read off? Danielle Harrison,
Yes?
Donald Beisemeyer,
Yes?
Emily Beisemeyer,
Yes?
Kelly Tomera,
Yes?
Kevin Miller,
Yes?
Colleen Leonard,
Yes?
Duncan Harrison,
Yes?
and Carl Brady.
Yes.
These are all postmarked after the April 2 election deadline. That one's pretty straightforward in the sense that the code is pretty clear. They need to be postmarked on or before the election day.
I just checked them all through, and every one of them came in after the...
Okay,
So-
is there anybody here that wants to make a challenge to any of those names? Okay, Madam Chair?
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject the group based on their being received late.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Postmark.
Postmark late.
Postmark late.
I vote to reject.
The vote is 8-0.
This is our other large group.
This is another group of registration issue ballots. And these ones are all tagged RE. Registered elsewhere. I'm trying to figure what the key is. Most of these look like they're registered in Alaska, but not in Anchorage according to the records. So, and there's 3.5 pages, well, three pages. Maybe you want to read to us like we did in that other big group. in the
Correct.
Mark.
We'd like that. Okay.
You ready?
We have Alexi. Okay. James Littell Ward, you tell me, because I'm not here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
James Little, okay. Devin Johnson,
Okay.
Jesse Overton,
Okay.
Bonnie Robinson,
Okay.
Petla Nodin,
Okay.
Pamela Neal,
Okay.
Eric Wolf,
Okay.
W-H-A, okay. Margie Thompson,
Okay.
Arnie Solwedell,
Okay.
okay. Jehonathan Bates,
Okay.
Lindsay Bell,
Okay.
Wendy Mosley,
Okay.
Sivahan McIntyre,
Okay.
Travis McClendon,
What was the name again?
Travis McClendon.
Okay, gotcha.
Is that in the right?
I had that.
That's in a different
I
category.
had that as a registered late.
That is
It
correct.
is. Have we done those yet?
No.
Okay.
Kathleen Drake,
Okay.
Elaine Abraham, Don Cunning,
Okay,
Kylie Rust,
okay,
Wendy Tuller,
okay.
Renee Trudeau.
Okay, that last one, can you check that again? Wendy, what was it?
Wendy, excuse me, it's Renee Trudeau, Trudeau.
Okay, that one is not on our list under code RE.
Amanda, would you mind looking that one up on Friends? Could you look that one up on Friends?
So while she's doing that, I'll read the other names off. Okay, Wendy Tuller, Bill Anton, Elaine Abraham, Kathleen Drake, Don Cunning, Kylie Rust, James Little Ward, Devin Johnson, Jesse Overton, Bonnie Robinson, Helta Noden, Eric Walsh, Alec Alexis, Pamela Neal, Lindsay Bell, Sealbon McIntyre, Wendy Mosley, Jonathan Bates, Arnie Solwell, Margie Thompson. So is there anybody in that group that wants to make a challenge, or anybody want to make a challenge on this issue?
I don't have particularly have a challenge on the issue, but I would correct one of the names. It is not Pelta noted, it is actually Petla, P-E-T-L-A. He's a personal friend of mine, and I think it should be corrected so we notify appropriately that it's valid for rejected.
It is Petla, Petla Noden.
Oh, P-E-L-T-A, maybe I just butchered it, sorry.
Actually on the, it's Petla, P-E-T-L-A.
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 Oh, the T and the L need to be switched.
Yep.
All right, gotcha. And that's what shows up on the envelope?
Yes.
My apologies. Okay, so there's.
May I ask a question about Travis McClendon?
We're not to that one yet. We think we have him in the wrong category. Is that the one we're looking at?
Well, that's the next category.
Next group. Okay. All right, so that group, there's no challenge. It's now in your hands, and this is the one where they're registered elsewhere.
Well,
With
you
the
have
one
a
exception
determination
that
on that
we're
one, is
looking
that?
at.
I'm not
misplaced?
finding this one in Brems.
At all.
Okay, Trudeau. It wasn't on our list, but they had his.
I'm not, it possibly could have been his file on that.
No, it's not in Friends.
It's not in there.
They're not in Bremen, so it wouldn't be registered elsewhere, it'd be not registered.
No, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay. So,
We need to look at that one.
yeah, why don't you go ahead and take this group,
Yes.
and we'll come back to that one.
Okay. So, all of these were pretty cut and dry. Just one second. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject them.
Do I hear a second? Second. I vote to reject these as registered elsewhere.
The vote is 8-0.
They didn't stick to that.
Oh, we've already done the Friends, it's not registered.
Do we need to go back to the next?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could you go back to that group real quick? Look for Bill Anton. She did not mark it off the list. We just want to double check to make sure that.
What are we looking for? I do not have him in this.
Okay, so we'll mark that as another one we want to look into. And now you have this, this last one before you just talked about. Could you say the name again and then the issue?
The name is Renee Trudeau. I have the election official marked voting out of precinct. You looked him up, Amanda, and could not find that one?
I attempted, but I did not find it.
Do we, on this one, can we further investigate this? Or do we need to
Yes, I
decide
can-
this tonight?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I felt like I read the name. Is that
Or is
not
it-
registered?
It was filed on the spreadsheet under not registered instead of registered elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense.
So on those ones, you were marking those off, right, or not registered, right? Not registered, we didn't do the checkbox because it was a small group. Right? Okay, so we have it marked off here. That suggests to me we need to check that group and make sure there's not two. If that's possible.
Okay.
Because somehow she marked it off as we read the name. Right, so maybe there's two on the full name.
What's the name?
Renee Trudeau.
You want to check it?
That's under the not registered group.
There it is.
So there's two.
There's two.
So you're gonna need to look at those two envelopes and start with the premise that it's the same person, see if the identifiers all match up.
The identifiers match.
You go ahead, Peg.
The identifiers match, the address matches, the date of birth matches, the signature matches.
Okay.
So this
And
part.
obviously, there's two issues. One, there's two ballots.
An obvious
And-
voted twice.
And also, the person's not registered. So I would suggest you deal with the second one of the motion and then keep them together. Because they should be in that same group together.
Okay, do we have a paper clip or something that we can put them together with? I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would you repeat that name? We're down here, we didn't quite catch it.
It's
Renee Trudeau.
Renee Trudeau. Do I hear a motion that we have one that's voted twice?
Well, haven't we already?
The motion is one, not registered, and two, voted twice.
Okay. We voted already on the not registered, correct?
Well, on the one ballot, might as well just treat them both the same.
Okay.
I know it's not projected.
Let's go for this. Okay, on Renee Trudeau, she is not registered, and she apparently, according to two envelopes, voted twice. Do I hear a motion?
I move we reject both ballots of Renee Trudeau based on her not being registered and that she voted twice.
Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
I vote we reject.
The vote is 8-0.
Madam Chair? Madam
Somebody
Chair?
wants to- yes.
I have a question to the attorney.
Sure.
Because the individual went in and voted in two different precincts, which is illegal. Is there any other action that needs to be taken? I realize the votes were rejected, but
Yeah, not by this commission, but we can certainly look into it. We'll worry about that later.
And we have envelopes that were registered late.
Yes, registered late. Looks like there's maybe 8 of them. You want to read the names, Steve?
Can I read them?
Sure.
Edith Town. Travis McClendon.
Oh, sorry, Edith Town, okay.
Travis McClendon.
Okay.
James Warenberg.
Okay.
Sheridan Atkins. Lydia Sobek, excuse me. Samantha Griffin.
Okay.
Alexander Piper.
Okay.
Shannon Bull Brassic.
And through the chair,
Yes?
the clerk's office this afternoon received additional information on Edith Town.
Okay.
She did register past the March 3rd deadline, but she changed her registration within the same district. And so, I would entertain a motion, or the chair could entertain a motion to have her additionally reviewed. We can pull her up in Brems again, or I did a screen print from Brems earlier.
You can verify that she changed registration, but was in the same precinct. Is that what
In
you're
the
saying?
same, not precinct, in the same district.
Okay.
So it's a change of registration over a just a change of address. So it's not a new registration.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Well, let's get the,
Let's get this.
get this so you can see
Okay,
it.
alrighty.
And while she's doing that, I understand, Madam, you wanted to speak to the
Oh,
budget?
sorry, I just talked to Travis. He's good. He realized he started the process on the right day, but didn't quite finish at the time. But I did call and ask if he wanted me to fight for it. He said no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's learned.
Um, So Edith Town was priorly registered in 855, and she's now registered in 425, and they are both in District 4.
When did she first register?
When was she first registered?
1984.
We will vote on, I would like
You want
to
to go ahead and
entertain a
vote first
motion for
separately, and
this.
then we'll pick up the rest as a group?
Should we do the group first? Is that what you're thinking?
Either way.
Okay. I would like to do this one first, Edith Town.
I move we accept the ballot of Edith Town based on her registration.
Yes. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I vote that we accept the ballot.
The vote is 8-0.
Keeping track of them. Okay, I have these other ones that were registered late. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we not count these ballots because they were registered late.
Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
I vote that we reject these based that they were registered late.
On these that were registered late.
The vote is 8-0.
It's really hard to hear.
SW?
So the next group is SW, self-attested, self-witnessed.
Oh.
Okay. So it's, last name is Lena, or is it the, Logston Lena?
Logston. Logston is the last
All
name.
right, so it's Lena Logston.
Lena Logston. Unfortunately, this is her vote, but she also signed it as an election official, so it's self-witness. Do I hear a motion?
Is there any challenge to that? All right, go ahead.
I vote that we reject this ballot on the basis of a self-witness.
Second the motion.
I vote we reject this ballot.
The vote is 8-0. The next group I have is voted late. There's two of them.
Voted late. Okay. We didn't already do that one?
These are the two that arrived after the polls closed. It was
Oh,
rotated down the side of the
okay,
envelope.
that's different. Oh, I see.
Voted late. Okay, both of these voted after the polls closed, written down the side by the election official. Do I hear a motion?
Before you.
Oh, names?
Names.
Names. Stuart
Timothy.
Lindsay and Timothy Coe.
Yes. Are there any challenges to those two? Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
I move we reject these ballots because they voted after the polls closed.
Second the motion.
I vote we reject these ballots.
The vote is 8-0. The next group is no voter signature on the envelope.
The names I have is Jean Lieberg,
Got it.
Patricia Haug, Haugotad. Got it?
Got it.
David Ruskin,
Got it.
Felicia Wade,
Got it.
and Daniel Bonner, I believe.
Bauman.
Okay, yes, BAU something.
Okay. And the issue here is no voter signature on the envelope. Is there anybody here who has a challenge to this issue? And I think these are absentees.
There's one mail-in, yes, they're all absentee.
Okay. And under the code on the first page, an absentee ballot may not be counted if the voter fails to properly execute the certificate.
Correct.
80 over OP1.
Do I hear a motion?
I move we reject these ballots based on no signature by the voter.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I vote we reject them.
The vote is 8-0. There's-
On the spreadsheet, there's the two final ones. There wasn't a code. These were ballots that were requested by fax. They did not meet the deadline in code to request a ballot of March 26th. They were requested afterwards.
And that is Manuel, Mary Manuel, and Edith Rep. Okay, so the application was received too late. Do I
So
hear-
the application came in late, so then you don't send them, what do you do?
The by mail board notifies them that they have missed the deadline, but they still send them a ballot and leave it up to the commission to review the ballot.
And the ballots,
To review the envelope, excuse me.
so the ballot envelopes,
They're faxed.
okay, so they fax back their vote. So the vote itself came in on time or not, both cases?
Where do I look for that?
Sandy.
Time-wise for the fax, Sandy.
Sandy, we need you. We need you again.
Okay, this is the application. Did the vote come in late?
The application came in late. It came in on March 30th. The deadline was March 26th. And on this one, it came in on the 27th, and the deadline was the 26th.
For the request, but what about the vote coming back?
Where's the thing?
Can you not photograph since that's a real ballot?
The one that requested on the 30th was returned to us on the 1st of April.
Both of them, sorry.
No, just one.
Just the one.
Mary Manuel.
And then the second one was requested on the 27th, and it came back on the 29th.
Come back on the 29th.
Uh-huh. They came back in time, but their request was late.
Okay.
Do you have, is the code specific on there?
That's what I'm looking for
That's
right now.
what we would like counsel on.
All right, so under 2860-060A, qualified voter may request or apply for an absentee ballot to be sent by electronic transmission. The request must be made not less than 7 days preceding the election in the same manner provided in 2860-050A, which is for absentee by mail. Absentee application must be received no later than 7 days before a regular, special, or runoff election. So now, the question here is whether that's what the court would call mandatory or directory. And so there may be an opportunity here to discuss whether you should count them. Because in this case, there's not a question of the voter's identity. There's no discrepancy in the identifiers. They were received before the election. Problem here is strict compliance. What we should do is take a quick look and see if the guidelines table that the state uses addresses this issue. Maybe you could use that to inform your decision. So I'm going to look here, see if I can find a page for you. What I'm looking for is whether the state has an application deadline, and I don't remember whether it does. So give me a minute here to scan through this. Okay, I'm not seeing a table that addresses that issue. You know, typically the courts are going to, the court decisions are a bit of a toss-up. On the one hand, the courts will say, well, it's really important to honor every vote and try to divine voter intent and try to give a liberal construction. And yet sometimes when they look at real technical requirements like filling in the oval, like on the write-in issue in the Murkowski campaign, it said if you didn't fill in the oval, the write-in itself doesn't count. Very, very technical. I guess I would be happy to defend you either way on this one. I would argue on the one hand, they came in on time and they're otherwise in compliance with but for that deadline date, which is supposed to be for the convenience of the clerk's office in handling these things. On the other hand, technically it didn't meet that deadline. I suppose I would, if you voted to count them, I would argue that it's directory and it's not a compliance issue where we worry about voter fraud. If you choose not to, I would defend that and say it didn't meet the requirement. The requirement is what it is. Yes.
Is there anything in code that states what the deadline for the application?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But there
They were
is,
supposed to have it in 7 days beforehand.
But not according to the code, right?
Make the application. I'm sorry?
According to the code?
They have not complied with the code, if I understand the counting right now. One was on the 26th and one was on the 27th.
27th and the 30th.
27th and 30th, sorry. So, unless March has more days in it than I can count, I think, you know, they're both short of that deadline. Is there any challenge to this issue?
upheld that everybody has to register on time, we've been through the others, I would hold the same for people with fax.
Any other comments?
Well, I think that because they were received before the voting day, I would like to see them counted.
So we have to weigh those two
Consistency, too.
things. All of the registered,
Can I say something?
is that, Dennis?
Can I say something about this?
Do you have a challenge?
I have an indirect challenge.
An indirect, I don't know what that is.
Well, I'll explain myself really quickly.
It's up to the discretion of the chair.
May I?
We will hear you.
I don't know if either one of these ballots, if they requested a ballot by mail before they requested it by fax. I do know for a fact from Harriet Drummond that she received her ballot at the very deadline, that she had to turn around and send it in immediately for it to make it on time and for it to be postmarked on time. She requested that ballot well in advance, and it took that ballot over 2 weeks to get to Juneau. So my question is, did these people request a ballot by mail first and then resort to by fax because they had no other way to vote because their ballot did not get to them? That's why I want to propose that.
Thank you for your comments.
Madam Chair.
Second, Joyce.
I guess my comment is, and I'm not familiar enough with the voting by facsimile, but why would the clerk's office send a ballot to someone who requested one by facsimile if it wasn't going to be counted and it was after the date that would be required for requesting one? Because if I did that and I received a ballot, I would assume that my vote would be counted because I received that ballot and I turned it in on time. So I'm a little confused as to, maybe the clerk's office can answer why the ballot went out, because if that's what the clerk's office is doing, well, then I think a procedural change or some sort of a note needs to be, notified to these two individuals or anyone else, because if it was happening to me, I'd be upset if I received the ballot and then find out it didn't count. So why is
Can you
one being
address that,
sent out
please?
after the deadline?
We can respond to that, and Amanda can respond to that.
So through the chair, the clerk's office notifies the voters if they've requested them too late, but we do still send them the ballot because it's not our response, it's not us that denies someone the vote. We leave that up to the commission to reject a vote. So the by mail board received the application, they received it after the deadline, they notified the voter that it was received after the deadline, but they processed it, and then they send it down to the election commission. And we follow the same procedure for election workers at the polling place on election day. We never put our election workers in a position where they're telling someone their vote's not going to count. They have them vote a question ballot, and it comes down to the commission. The commission, appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the assembly, is tasked with reviewing these ballots. And we are reviewing the facts. The deadline is a week before the election. It is one thing that we would like to change. We would like to move it up to closer to election day. It does require a code change, so we will be speaking to the assembly about that code change.
Do if I might clarify, you did send out a letter to them saying that their request was
We
received?
notified them.
You notified them. So they knew that before they voted? How were they notified? How were they
They said
notified?
yes, so they said
Oh, excuse me, yes.
How were they notified?
By phone?
I have to kind of disagree with that. The first one, the March 27th one, we did speak with her on the phone. She was in Prudhoe Bay, and anyway, we told her that we will not deny her the right to vote, so we send the ballot, but we did not tell her it would count. We said that would have to be up to the commission. So our thing is, we always let them vote, because that's their right.
That other one. What about the other one?
That one we didn't have any contact with.
Do we need to decide this one tonight? Can we deliberate on this?
You should decide tonight, or you're gonna end up reconvening your
That's
public
true.
canvas before you count. Or you're
Okay.
gonna stop your count midstream and take this back up again. If you were to take it at ease, you've been at it for quite a while.
Can we just circle and talk about it?
You can't debate it amongst yourself if you take it at ease, but if you take it at ease, stretch your legs and come back and.
Circle.
No, we can't.
No, where they can still hear.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
We can't
Can we
talk
get,
amongst ourselves.
can we get
right now?
into a circle where everyone can hear, but, so the 8 of us can hear each other?
We're having down here, we're having a really hard time hearing
So can we
what people
circle?
down there say.
Yeah, sure, are you guys gonna get closer together, fine, just make sure you're speaking loudly enough
Okay.
so everybody can hear you.
Okay, someone needs to come up this way, guys.
Wait, till Vicki comes in.
I am like evenly divided on this.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Bring along around close.
Come closer.
Vicki, can you?
Yeah,
I can sit right here. A little bit further. Thank you.
What were the dates on these?
Can you hand this to us?
We can't hear.
We haven't said anything.
Not those?
You're gonna have to really speak up because we can't hear anything
All right.
out here.
Can I have the other one, please? This application was received.
You still can't
Yeah.
hear?
Louder.
No, you
Talk.
have to talk much louder.
Okay, the application of Mary Manuel was received on March 31st. The application of Edith Rep was received on March 27th. The deadline date was the 26th. And both of them were received, the votes were received by the voting date,
By April 2nd.
by April 2nd.
So it was just the application for
The applications were late.
that was.
The applications were late.
Doesn't cover.
We can't, you can't see the ballot.
The ballot.
Yeah.
I can't see anything anyway,
Yeah,
but.
it's just like
I can cover it up
white.
with a piece of paper, I mean, I have to be able to tell.
Is that, okay. Do you have considerations?
Well, I know that the city attorney said that he couldn't find that in the statute, but I'm curious as to what the state policy is regarding facsimile ballots. It seems, I can understand the deadline, and we're not doing policy, but I can understand the deadline for mailing out a ballot, but when it's a facsimile ballot, it can only be done in the same day. I'm not sure why we have that deadline.
Can I ask that question? Mr. Wheeler, is there any state code, that covers this type thing?
At the state level?
Yes.
There probably is, I'm not familiar with it.
It's 5 o'clock the day before the election. You can apply for it by fax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So then you can vote on the day of the election.
That
and
is
it
correct.
Okay.
That, to me, that tips my opinion more that way.
I guess my other comment, Madam Chair, is that all of the other rejections were they weren't registered, or they were registered, not in the municipality. They're not registered here, didn't sign it, and so forth. I guess I understand all that.
For various reasons, not
For
registered.
for various reasons. Basically, what the city clerk is saying, they give everybody the opportunity to vote. I'm leaning toward accepting the ballots just because of the fact that they were sent out and they were faxed back, and it sounds like one of the individuals wasn't even aware of the fact that their ballot wouldn't count.
Excuse me, I'm looking at the code in E, and it says, "A voter who returns the absentee ballot by electronic transmission must comply with the same deadlines as for voting in person on or before the closing hour of the polls." registered.
And they did comply with that.
They did.
They were in compliance with that.
And a request is not the same as being registered. That's a different issue. I'm inclined to count the votes, but.
I move we count these 2 votes based on the fact that
Wait
they
just a minute,
voted.
why don't we do?
Should we go back to the table?
Shall we go back to the table?
Whoops, I'm sorry, let you move your chair.
This is how we are.
This is our life.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept these 2 ballots based on the fact that they were received prior to the voting day, prior to election day.
Second the motion.
I vote to accept these ballots.
The vote is 8-0 in favor.
Barbara, I'm going to put these in this envelope because they're ballots. Is that all right?
Just real quick, a question from the press. I just want to make sure I understand why they were originally in the rejection pile. What was wrong? What was wrong with them?
Because they did not request the fax vote by the deadline specified. They voted by the deadline of the actual election day, but their request for a fax vote was not in on the deadline.
Madam Chair, we're going to go back to one that we couldn't find originally. It was Mr. Bill Anton.
Under what category?
Where is it?
Registered elsewhere.
Yeah. R.E.
Registered elsewhere. Bill Anderson.
Not registered? Did we find him under not registered?
He is registered. He is in.
I think this is where he was on the list, but not, you guys didn't have an envelope for it. So we have a copy of the envelope. Where's the actual envelope?
We don't know.
Okay.
We just have copies.
All right. So we need to, Madam Chair, what we want to do is talk about the issue. We'll work on finding the envelope, but we can talk about the issue.
You have a photocopy
We
of
have
it?
a photocopy of it.
Yeah.
And presuming that the envelopes and the photocopy match up, which they should.
Yes.
We can go forward. We may need to give we may not be able to make a final decision until you can produce the original. But for purposes of moving this along, let's at least talk about
Okay,
that.
this envelope, as their residence address states Parks Highway, Denali Park, which is not in the municipality of Anchorage, which is why we elected to reject it under registered elsewhere, because they have to, anyway. Do I hear a motion? Based on the retrieval of the envelope. You should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject the ballot based on the fact that he's not registered in the municipality of Anchorage.
Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
I vote to reject.
8-0.
Okay.
And what I would say for the record is that when we find that envelope, let's make sure it reports what we decided, and that may mean we need to get on the record for the minute or two it takes to say that you found it and confirm it's
Okay.
that's as stated in the Xerox, okay? So
Amanda,
that-
can we put this in our file, this copy?
Yes, please do.
There we go.
We have one more ballot.
You have one more? Okay.
Okay, this is Linda Rasmussen. We have no identifier. The identifiers that are on the envelope are incorrect. The social security number is not that person's social security number. The birth date is not that person's birth date. And the driver's license listed is not under VREM, so we can't check whether that's theirs. But we did notice at the end that the representative, their social security listed is the same as the one over here. So there was no identifier for us to.
This is a special needs ballot?
Yes.
Okay. And none of the identifiers for the voter match
Correct.
Linda Richardson at that address?
Correct.
Rasmussen. What did I say?
Richardson.
Wow, it's getting late. Rasmussen, sorry. As I said before, in a special needs, it's really important to have those identifiers, I think, because that person isn't presenting themselves to an election official, doesn't have two witnesses, so on. So keep that in mind.
So we have that listed under no correct ID, which is, basically the same as no ID, no identifiers. So, do I hear a motion? Go ahead, Alice.
I move that we reject this ballot for Linda Rasmussen based on the fact that none of the identifiers are accurate.
Like a second?
Second it.
I vote that we reject this ballot with the comment that we need to clarify this more for special needs. I'm not sure how we could do that.
I mean, in terms of educating the public as to what's...
Yes.
Well, that should be a separate thing on the board,
idea,
not a condition
yes.
on your vote.
Right.
With that,
Right.
voting in.
We're voting again.
Same issue.
Voting again.
All for
this
Same
one,
issue.
to reject this.
All right,
reject
8-0,
ballot.
thank you, sorry. Do you have any more ballots? Okay, is there any more on that list? I think we hit all the ones on the list. Okay, so with that, you have, Madam Chair, a couple of choices. You can either A, take a short break, or B, dive right into hearing other challenges from the audience.
I would definitely like a short break, please.
And I'll go see if I can find this.
Do I need to have that moved and seconded?
That's fine.
All right.
Can I put this under no identifier? I'll go look for it. And I'll go look for this one. No? Where we here? Under question I mean, it's easy to find.
She's also
Oh, you're kidding me? Well, let me ask you this.
Correct, but that was not it was supposed to be there.
Yes. Well, he's got two. He had an envelope with a mail on it. Two things on it. But she is saying, obviously this is two. But she says, on April 2nd, well, the whole vote at 8. We had two things in there.
I mean, I don't remember.
Well, I definitely remember that.
But I don't like it.
Yeah, it's so they got like built. But yeah, it's just taking a little while. So this election stuff is what?
Jim Mary. You could register. You could go vote
Receiving it after 7 days.
I don't even know. I don't know. I don't even. He writes a
Well, let's see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Here's her. Here's her challenge. And I'm just wondering if there needs to be something on the record that we addressed. Yes.
Yeah.
It says they're dated.
They're working about that. They've been working on
Concerned citizens and Nick Milford.
I just wanted to mention like in 2010 or something like that when I was here.
Instead of they track something between 7 and 8. I know. It's late either way. But my question is something that
Yeah, maybe she hit a flat tire, got stuck in traffic or something that was late, so we can do that. Put it on record.
Yeah, it's the code. We have to have the code.
She had a copy to this to anybody, or is this So when could, Ask to reopen, ask to reopen this.
Yeah,
It's
she was-
fine.
they're talking
Do
about
that.
it.
Ask to reopen.
Okay, but do you want to read it? When it comes back?
Didn't get any feedback. There has to be some documentation. You said you sent out a piece of mail. So
I sat there while they were talking about one of the ladies, the election official didn't see her. That's what it is. So, I didn't see them covering anything. That's what I was talking about.
So we already addressed what this is.
in Washington State, they email, they call, they send a letter, they literally have 8 to 14 people investigate, issue minutes. Did they just leave?
We've already addressed it.
Okay, Stephen, there's a paper.
Yeah, remind me.
There's a paper.
That's what I told her. I was fixing to text her.
Also, said he faxed something between 7 and 8:30, which he did. This is late.
And I wake him up.
But he faxed it at 86. And it came in. So she's right, he did fax it between 7 and 8:30. But it was at 8:06 after we voted. No, we voted to reject it because they're both late. But then she brought the challenge on if we addressed a written challenge.
Okay.
If you, whatever you think. You can ask them.
Do you think we need to open this?
Yeah, get it on record
That
got
we-
this, dealt with it.
That we dealt with the
Shows
written.
you guys go the extra mile to take into consideration of this issue.
I'm going to defer this to you. I didn't want to speak.
So you guys ready?
Yes.
The commission's ready to get started again.
Good idea.
Yeah, really. Too low.
Okay, I call the meeting back to order. We had a written comments given to us, and would you like to address that?
Madam Chair, I move that we reopen our discussion of the matter of the ballots cast by James Obermeyer based on a written challenge and a written request that we consider these ballots.
Okay. Now, this is the one
We
that...
need a second.
Oh, all right, second.
Okay.
So we will reopen discussion.
We're reopening
We reopen discussion on one of the fax ballots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the hands were flying there. I think I saw 8-0 to reopen discussion with Mr. Obermeyer.
Okay, this is one that we rejected, but we've had a written note handed to us. You go ahead. And, you know,
This was written by the mother of James Obermeyer. She states that his municipal absentee ballot was dated 4/4/13. It looks like it's dated 4/3, in which case it's after
the
Election
voting
Day. James is willing to swear that he faxed his municipal absentee ballot on Tuesday, April 2nd, between 7 and 8:30 p.m. His absentee ballot should be counted. So the question is regarding the absentee ballot.
Did Sandy leave?
Yes.
It was received here at 11 p.m. on April 2nd, and it was mailed or it was faxed at 8:06. She is correct that he did it between 7 and 8:30.
However, it was faxed after
the closing of the polls. So it was faxed at 8:06.
So we received the bio-mail one day after the election. We received the fax after the time of the election's closing.
It's not that you received it after, it was postmarked after, right?
This was postmarked April 3rd.
Yes, postmarked April 3rd, yes.
And this fax version was faxed 8:06 and arrived at 11 o'clock at night on April 2nd. So, again, both of those.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would that be a double vote? Two ballots?
Well, they're both invalid.
I realize that, but.
But yes, that issue is there as well.
Technically, yes. So we have rejected both of these. I believe that we were right in doing so. I mean, we could.
Do we open it for
Yeah.
another vote?
That's what I had to do, because when we took it up, nobody challenged that issue, but then she came in and dropped it off, and maybe she was late getting here for some reason out of her control, so I suggested that you take it up again, so please vote again.
Madam Chair, I move that the decision we made in rejecting both of these ballots remain, that we reject both ballots, the fax, and which was our original decision.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
I vote we reject both of them.
The vote is 8-0. Okay, Madam Chair, we're back where we were just before the break, which is now a chance to hear challenges from the audience that we haven't taken up. And I don't, do you have any preference on how that happens?
I don't have a preference. Do you have a suggestion?
I really don't. I suspect maybe we should hear from the campaign first, the two attorneys that I've talked to. If they have issues they want to raise, now would be the good time to do that. Gentlemen?
Scott Kendall for the Ernie Hall campaign, and we have no issues nor challenges.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No issues, no challenges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Munson?
Hi, I'm Patrick Munson. Thanks for letting us come and join you. I passed in a one objection to kind of a broad issue that I wanted to address, and that's the folks who cast ballots, specifically in District 3, who cast ballots in other districts. We believe that the code actually allows for those votes to be counted if any name is written in to the assembly race. And if you look at AMC 2830.010A3, that's the code section that that governs this issue, I think, as far as the city is concerned. And if you read that closely, to me, it reads that if, in order to cast a valid vote relating to a specific district, the voter has to be registered at a residence within that district. They have to be registered in that district, but they don't have to vote in that district. So when they go somewhere else and they ask for a ballot, they're given this question ballot because they're not on the list, and they're told that they can vote it. And if someone takes it in and writes a name on the assembly race, they get to cast that ballot, thinking that it's going to count because it relates to, that's the word in the code, it relates to the race that they're allowed to vote on. And they hand it in thinking that things are going to count, and then now we're kind of going back and we're going to create a new, under the process that we believe is going to be used, those votes are going to be facsimile, but those written in votes are going to be left off. And we think that it's pretty clear what that voter's intent is. It's clear that they're eligible to vote for a candidate in the race that they're allowed to vote on, and that written in vote for whoever it is should be counted. It's going to be a really small number of votes, we think, and it's just on the question ballots that were cast by folks who voted outside of their district. But it's clear that they're registered, they're just registered somewhere else, and we believe they're entitled to have that vote heard as it relates to, or to the race that's actually relevant to them. So we've put that in writing for you to consider, and we really hope you'll take a look at it. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but if not, I'll let you go on.
Can we refer to Dennis? What do we do with that?
Well, I wondered if there was any other point of view on the challenge. Not that you're required to at this point, but I can certainly speak if you want me to.
I'll go ahead. I was waiting for Dennis to go first. But
go ahead.
Thank you for the chance to speak. I'll try not to stand right in front of you.
This is the, you represent?
Scott Kendall on behalf of the Hall campaign. He is, Mr. Moe's attorney is correct. These voters are entitled to vote. However, the problem is not in whether they're entitled to vote in that race. The problem is they're handed a ballot on which the race does not appear. And the requirements that they mark that race cannot be obeyed. There is no question they've made no mark in that race. There's no question that the ballot they were handed did not contain Mr. Hall's name. And in fact, when an out-of-district voter is handed a question ballot, they're handed this notice that informs them that some races or issues shown on this ballot differ from those in your resident precinct, and if all other voter qualifications are met, only those which apply to your precinct will be counted. So they're provided with notice that, hey, you're voting out of district. There's area-wide races, sure, you get to vote on those. If you say you vote in the Paul Hahnemann race and you write in Nick Moe, that vote can't count because you're voting in District 5, say, and you're a District 3 voter. 2, it's not the right ballot. You're not marking the race in which Ernie Hall appears. So essentially the vote can't count for a number of different reasons. Again, the voters are advised you can either go to a precinct that's within your district. Any precinct within your district will have the right ballot. You can go to one of the 3 locations the municipality provides where they have all the ballots. You can vote early by mail, you can vote early in person, but when we're handing you this ballot, please realize only votes that are common to your district are going to be counted. So I think the municipality does the best job it can in making sure everyone gets to vote and vote to the maximum extent they've made themselves able, but there's no basis under law to count a vote in an entirely different race in another district.
Thank you. Mr. Wiley, would you like to
Do you
address
have any
that?
questions for either of these gentlemen? So when we looked at this issue, what we found was the Alaska Supreme Court case that's quite old at this point, and it talks about how the state has allowed cross-district voting for quite some time, but there are some potential issues about allowing it. And the court dodged the question because the parties have failed to raise it in an election challenge. These guys have crossed that hurdle, they've raised it to you now. So the Supreme Court couldn't duck it in the same way it did quite some time ago. When I looked at what the state does now, and it may have been true back then, we didn't have those old ballots to really look at, but yes, they allow cross-district voting, but in the same way that I believe this commission has in the past, and that is they allow the area-wide races or the races that that person can still vote on, even though they're not necessarily in the right place. So for example, the state says, well, if you're in the wrong House district when you vote, you still get to vote in the other races. Like you might still be able to vote in the Senate race, even though it's not an area-wide race. You might still get to vote for the judges, even though those aren't quote-unquote area-wide races. And so when we look through all the state guidelines, it's pretty clear to me that they do try to count as many of the person's votes on the ballot as they can, but not the ones where the person is out of the precinct trying to vote back on that precinct race. Interestingly enough, I don't know what a court would do with it today. I believe the court would do as Mr. Kendall suggested. But it's an interesting question because I can see the unique logic in Mr. Munson's argument that you have a voter who is qualified, who clearly indicates on their envelope where they should have been when they voted, for whatever reason they're not in that right precinct, and they're trying to vote on as many races as they can. If you were to follow that logic, however, you do run into this problem, as Mr. Kendall has noted, and that is you've got either, in this case, Honeman versus whatever the write-in is, or Johnston versus whatever the write-in is, or any other scenario where somebody's written in the name. How do you define voter intent? Because they wrote in Nick Moe, is that truly their intent? Is that a protest? What if they write in John Smith or Mary Jane Doe? So I think it does present a new challenge in trying to truly define voter intent in that situation.
Are we expected to decide this issue?
You are expected to decide this issue because you have to count the votes and produce a report to the assembly. And I imagine that both sides will have at the end of your process a pretty good sense of whether this matters or not to them. Because when you go through the process of doing the facsimile work that you're going to do and so on, and the marking that we talked about with the area-wide and so on, they'll have, and they'll probably want to observe you very closely when you create the facsimiles. Because I've told them that they can actually, if they want to, keep track of those votes. It's up to them to write down, kind of keep track of what's going on. But at the end of the day, they'll have a pretty good sense of how many votes they're talking about. And if it matters to them, they can go to the next level, which is to take this issue beyond you to the assembly, and if necessary, beyond the assembly to a Superior Court. But they do need you to make the fact finding and the initial count and how you're going to treat it.
May I speak?
Yes.
My name is Jeannie Friedman, and I'm just a general member of the public. My husband and I have expressed in an email similar along the lines of the fact that when a voter votes their ballot out of district, that should count according to the code. The code explicitly states that all write-in ballots shall be separated from regular ballots. It doesn't say under which conditions. Based on the fact that we understand that ballots cast in District 3, regardless of the precinct, so someone can cast a ballot inter-district, where they can go from precinct to precinct within the same district and cast a ballot, so they can cast an absentee ballot within the same district. But yet, if the commission decides to not allow someone to also cast an absentee ballot who's registered in District 3 outside of their district as an intra-district question ballot, then I see that as a discriminatory issue based on a person's access to their precinct that may be beyond their control, and I see this as a potential ACLU problem or an issue that could be brought up. So you may want to take that under consideration as you're making this decision.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could I have her repeat the main point of what you were saying so that I understand it clearly?
Thank you very much. The code does not explicitly state that, well, one, it does explicitly state that all write-ins need to be separated. So all write-ins on a ballot must be separated. That the code is clear on. The second issue that I'm making is the fact that if my precinct is located within District 3, I can go ahead and vote at any other precinct within District 3 and not have my question ballot thrown out because I am voting in the same district, and that's an inter-district question ballot. But if I decide if I'm in District 3 and I voted, and I live in District 3, but I cast my vote outside of District 3, then I'm automatically being discriminated against because I'm no longer in the same district, the precinct that I went. So as an example, if my intention is to go ahead and cast a ballot that day at my home precinct, and so therefore I haven't had an opportunity to request a facsimile ballot or something like that because I have the intent of voting on election day, which I have done all of my life. I've never cast, except for last year, I did cast an in-person absentee ballot. But my intent is to vote at my precinct, and I have to be to work at 7 a.m. in the morning, and for some reason I'm delayed, and I either have car problems or another problem, but I complete my civic duty, and I go to the nearest precinct to cast my ballot, and it's out of the district, then I'm automatically being penalized even though I have written in my choice. If you automatically take that facsimile and drop my choice, even though I've written it in, then you're discriminating against me based on my precinct and my access to that precinct. Just because I'm out of district shouldn't make a difference.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would like to look at a sample ballot of in a district other than 3 because the write-in is down below each of the names of the candidates. And then can we imply that that means that write-in is for that race rather than a race in another district?
That's part of the debate. Amanda wanted to speak to this. I know Mr. Hudson wanted to. He actually raised his hand first before Amanda.
Definitely defer to Amanda.
I just wanted clarification because when you first spoke, you said absentee voting, and then the second time you said question.
Thank you. So it wouldn't be an absentee, it would be a question because I'm actually attending the poll on election day, and I misspoke the first time.
So you're at a precinct.
Correct.
It's not your own. Okay.
Right.
And voting a question ballot.
But I'm voting a question ballot, and on the question ballot envelope, I've identified that I'm a District 3 resident. I reside in District 3. I filled in my correct residence, but I acknowledge, I'm at a question ballot. I'm at a precinct outside of District 3. Now, this only applies for those precincts outside of District 3, because if I complete a question ballot inside of District 3, there's no question about it at all. It'll be accepted. But if I go outside of District 3 and I fill in the correct information, I'm a registered voter, there's no other problem, I have a district, let's give an example of the press release, a District 5 ballot that has a write-in slot, and I go ahead and I bubble in the oval and I write in, say for instance, Mr. Hall's name, that vote should count. Because I've identified that I'm a District 3 voter. My ballot's going to be facsimiled from a District 5 ballot, which is what I had access to, onto a District 3 ballot so that it will count. So that facsimile should carry my voter intent over into that write-in column for the assembly race. I know that I'm not eligible for voting for Mr. Hahnemann because I don't live in District 5. However, I've bubbled in the oval and I've written in Mr. Hall's name. That vote should be transferred over to the ballot for the District 3 that's been facsimiled, because that was my intent when I filled in the oval and I wrote in the name. And I've identified that I live in a District 3 precinct, or in District 3 because I've completed the question ballot correctly.
Thanks. And so I just wanted to point out that I'm talking about what the law allows for who's allowed to vote in what race. And some of the issues that I've heard are both about the ballot and the instructions. And I think we all know if you follow the law, you need to follow the law. And to the extent a person fails to follow the instructions, that's important, but it's not a reason to get your vote thrown out, period. Necessarily, unless you disagree. It can be, certainly. But the other thing about the ballot is the only difference between a District 5 voter saying a District 3 voter is that above the assembly race, it's going to say a different seat. You know, it says seat H or something like that instead of seat D in this case. And it's pretty clear what the intent is. Are we really going to throw this person's vote out because the box says it's a different seat, when we all know what that person is trying to vote, who that person is trying to vote for? And they can vote for either candidate doing that. That's the important thing to remember. So whether Mr. Hall's name or Mr. Honeman's name appears on that ballot really doesn't matter, because the voter is allowed to write in any name of a valid candidate in their district in order to be able to cast a vote for the race they're eligible to vote for. And there's no question they're eligible to vote in District 3, even if they happen to, by location, be voting somewhere else. And the last thing I'd say is that since the code allows a vote to be cast in this way, it seems like the vote should count to the greatest extent possible. And we shouldn't be looking for little reasons to discount the voter's intent or to disenfranchise the majority of that person's vote. And if we've got a good reason, a good clear thing to look at and say, this is obviously the voter's intent, this person is completely eligible to cast this vote, they're just in the wrong place, that vote should count. Thank you.
Madam Chair, sorry.
I guess along that same line of thinking, then we have disenfranchised anyone who has voted out of precinct by not explaining to them that if you want to vote for the candidate, you live in Mr. Honeman's district, but you're a school teacher and you're voting in Mr. Hall's district. Now, we have not explained to that person that you can fill in a bubble and you can still vote for Mr. Honeman and that vote will count. So we have disenfranchised all of those voters who have voted out of precinct by not explaining to them that they could fill in a little bubble and write in the candidate in the district where they should be voting.
That is a point. And of course, the procedure is that you're supposed to provide, as Mr. Kendall said, the orange sheet that lets voters know what the consequences are of voting the question ballot. We're not going to make a point about the case I talked about earlier, because it is true that the court has recognized at the state level there is this notion that you should be allowed to vote cross precinct. But what the court said about cross district voting is that it's a much more difficult problem considering the legality of cross district voting. So the state Supreme Court has not clearly addressed this. It's certainly cross precincts is okay, but when you go cross district, that's a whole nother issue. And as I noted before, the court dodged that issue in this case because the parties didn't raise it as a challenge at the right time.
Yes.
Just briefly, I sort of wanted to circle back. I can sort of reflect on a personal experience I had is working on the Murkowski write-in campaign. I certainly had to look at hundreds of thousands of ballots. Certainly the issue came up of, you look at that many people would fill in and write in Lisa Murkowski for the race for Congress. There was no question that's not a vote that counts. And that's much akin to what the Mo campaign is asking this commission to do, is they're not asking them to preserve a vote, they're asking them to sort of create a vote out of whole cloth based on a hypothetical. What you've got on the ballot that these out of district as opposed to out of precinct voters voted on was a different race. And they're asking you to take a vote that there's no question that's a vote in a different race. It's a vote that can't count because they're not eligible to vote in that race. And transfer it and create a new vote on a facsimile ballot. There's a number of problems with that. One, there's no provision in law for it whatsoever. The other problem is the equal protection problem that was pointed out by one of the commission members of, you've got a whole class of people that, oh, it's a free-for-all, then I could have gone ahead and done that. If that were the case, the instructions would say the opposite of the instructions you hand the questioned, the voters receiving a questioned ballot. In fact, the instructions say any race that's not common to your district doesn't count. And the Mo campaign is essentially asking you to do the opposite of what you've told the public. There's also an equal protection issue in that Mr. Hall was entitled to be on the ballot. Any ballot that's voted on in his race, he was entitled to be on it. He was on all those ballots that are voted in district. He was on all those ballots that any voter could have gone to and gotten at City Hall here, or any of the 3 locations that had the correct ballots. So just for a plethora of reasons, I would urge the commission not to permit essentially the creation of votes out of whole cloth. Thank you. Scott Kendall on behalf of the Hall campaign.
Madam Chair, one of the commissioners asked for sample ballots, and Amanda and I got some sample ballots for you. Those are in the District 3 race, and those are in the race. You asked for District 5? That's District 5.
Madam Chair, just a moment. I'm going to wait until the paper is So everybody got them? No. Go ahead.
I just wanted to...
Please state who you...
I'm Linda Kellen.
And who are you with?
Me, myself, and I guess today.
You're not representing anybody?
I'm not representing anybody, no. I just wanted to address Mr. Kendall's equivalency that he made of that it would be the same as voting for Lisa Murkowski in the congressional race, because it would not be the same, because both the congressional race and the Senate race are statewide, so both of those races are on all ballots. So there's already a place on every single ballot then statewide to put Lisa Murkowski's name. So what he's equating it to is a false equivalency, because what we're talking about is some place where there's no place for someone out of precinct to put, the only place that there is to put Ernie Hall's or Nick Moe's name would be on a place where, you know, a different place, because none of those names are on the ballot. Whereas the ballot he's talking about, both of those areas are already available. And there's already some place where you could legitimately put Lisa Murkowski and write her in. So I just wanted to point out that that wasn't a fair comparison.
Madam Chair?
But if you look at our sample ballot, in the box, the name of the candidate that's running in that race, and then the write-in is directly below it. So how do you determine if the write-in name is for a district somewhere else? Will they write that name? Will they say John Doe, District 3?
So, Madam Chair,
Just a moment, please.
Madam Chair, both parties have had 2 bites at the apple, so to speak. You can continue to take more input, or you can debate it. It's up to you at this point, but I think you have given the 2 sides of the issue a fair opportunity, so it's up to you.
I had one question actually for the clerk, and it's not really argument. Was there any precinct or districts in which there were no assembly races?
Yes.
So that would create a category of ballots wherein there was no spot to write in a write-in.
Yes.
Wait a minute. No, there was no district.
Hold on a second.
Yes, there was.
Let the chair run the meeting, so the chair will need to recognize you before you can get going, if she wants to.
All right.
Your question would be, if I was registered in District 3, and that was my home district, and I voted in District 5, on my question ballot, it would state, I am District 3, I am registered in District 3, here is all of my information, and all of that information would match up, even though I'm voting in District 5, because that's where I was at the time. Thank you.
It's on the envelope, not on the ballot, just for clarification. And I would be happy to, through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
There was no assembly race for the downtown district. There's
Because
only
of
one
Patrick, you're
member.
right.
So there was not any race on the ballot this year for all the precincts in downtown Anchorage.
Did you have a comment, Barbara?
No, that was it. She covered
I
that.
think we need to discuss this. Is this time to?
We have to discuss it now. We can't discuss it before we count. Do we have to make that decision right now?
Yeah, he said tonight.
The city attorney said we should make
Do we
that
have a
decision
motion and a
tonight.
second and then a discussion? Let's do
Pardon?
that. Do we have a motion and a second?
For discussion.
I believe we need a motion for discussion.
We can just discuss.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
discuss this.
The issue is before the commission.
Can you come in so we can hear each other's comments?
Madam Chair, just as a reminder, we're having trouble hearing. I think these guys are having trouble hearing, so you got to get together, but you also got to talk loud so that we can all hear it and we can get on the recording.
All right, I think if we're going to talk loud, we can hear each other.
Yeah.
Okay. I like looking at your faces, but,
Yeah.
is there any discussion on this matter?
Well, I bring up the point that what if a person registered in District 3 or District 5 wanted to write in a candidate, but they were downtown and they voted in the downtown district, which did not have an assembly race on it? The ballot would not show any place for them to write in.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think the other point is that the bottom line is what is the voter's intent? And when someone votes out of their precinct, or out of the district, and they were to, under the Paul Horniman name, write in a name, we don't know what the voter intent was. We don't know if the voter didn't remember the fact that they weren't, in that particular precinct and wanted to write in a name. So I think to me, the bottom line is voter intent. And if someone is filling out a ballot that is not for the district that they live in, I don't know what that voter's intent is, because it's not listed for that particular district, and it's not listed, the candidate that's running in that district is not listed. So to me, I don't have any idea what the voter intent was, and I would say that it should not be counted. Just because, let's use Nick Moe's name, let's just say, for instance, his name was written in. Or let's say Mickey Mouse was written in, or John Doe or whatever. We don't know what the voter intent was. So I don't feel that, if I don't know what the voter intent is, I'm going to say it shouldn't be counted.
More discussion?
Well, I do believe that someone brought up the point that they could have gone to one of the precincts that have a lot of ballots in them. For
The
every
universal?
precinct. Yeah.
The universal.
And that would have been a better move than to take other district and write in someone's name who is not even an official candidate at this point.
There's so many options of voting. In person, by mail, by fax.
By universal.
By universal polling places. I feel that because our workers have been trained, and I worked in a lot of precincts and visited a lot of them, and I've heard them give instructions with virtually every question ballot that you understand that your vote is not going to count. And some may count, some may not. They are given those instructions, and to me that would disenfranchise those that follow those instructions and voted differently.
I would say one of the precincts that I visited on election day had a man come in who lived in Eagle River, but because he worked downtown, he wanted to vote downtown. And they did explain that to him. They explained the whole situation to him, that he would not be able to vote for his representative. And he said, oh, okay, then I'm going out to Eagle River. Because he wanted to vote for his person. So I think the training was quite explicit about that. I attended a training session and I heard that.
Any other comments? Do you have something to say, Bonnie or Peggy?
Having worked in the precinct, I've heard the same thing. If you take a sample ballot, a question ballot, and it's not your precinct district, that's your decision. It will still count for school board.
You have the
members.
option of going to a universal polling place as well as your regular one. Any more discussion? Sue, do you have anything you want to add, or Alice?
No, I'm just trying to think of how to move the question.
Speak up, Alice.
She's thinking.
Oh, excuse me.
Do we open Pandora's box?
You mean, okay.
Will other people follow this as an example? We could vote for anybody.
I just look at we know what it is to adjudicate these votes. You add that in the mix.
What's that?
We know what it's like to decide between these votes, what counts and what doesn't. If we're talking about adding in, well, they live in this precinct or this district, and what do they mean, and well, that's,
They go back through a whole. I appreciate what Mr. Wheeler said, that these people are certainly welcome to look at the votes that they determine were cast in other districts and wrote in Mr. Mo's name and want to challenge X number of those votes in court. I think that's certainly their privilege, and I think Mr. Wheeler said we would cooperate in helping them identify those. But Madam Chairman, I would move that ballots cast by registered District 3 voters in other districts using a question ballot are restricted to the area-wide votes, and that a write-in vote in another district other than District 3 would not be counted.
do I hear a second?
Second that.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
Is there any further discussion on that? So how are we voting? We are voting for
That the write-ins will not
We're
count.
voting for the status quo, basically.
that the writings will not count.
Out of district.
Out of
Out
district.
of district write-ins will not be.
Out of district write-ins will not count.
Okay.
Because the same is true for District 5.
Okay. All in favor that the out-of-district votes will not count?
The vote is 8-0. Okay, at this time, are there any other challenges that anybody has to make on what the election commission has done to date in terms of cataloging all the ballots? Is it a challenge?
Is a challenge to what was said earlier regarding the person who voted twice and didn't register? It's something to consider.
They've already voted on that issue, so it's too late for a challenge.
What,
So
the challenge?
If you have a challenge, let's take those up. If you don't have a challenge, at the chair's discretion, she can open it up to general public comments.
It's not a challenge on the decision. It's a challenge on the comment made. Should we pursue this legally? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, this isn't a time to take challenges on a comment. Just
Okay,
challenges
that's
on-
all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
But you're free to make a public comment if the chair and the commission will allow it. So there are no other challenges unless Mr. Dunsmore stands up and makes one.
Yes, sorry. My name is Michael Dunsmore. I do have a few issues that I've been watching this week, and I just wanted to bring up for further review.
Are you looking into the nature of the challenge?
Yeah. The first one is going to be in the nature of the ballot of Christy Gavin in Precinct 800.
I'm sorry, I'd like to ask, have you provided a copy of those to us?
I have a hard copy I'll hand you as soon as I'm done reviewing this.
Okay, I will say that we did ask you to make copies of those ahead of time for us, and I will tell you that 99% of them we've addressed with you, and either the commission has made a correction, but now it's going to be much more difficult for us to do that.
I apologize. We were still, as you know, collecting information up until the very last minute. And I do know that the city code specifies that this is an appropriate time to be doing this. So in the matter of Christy Gavin and Precinct 800, this question ballot envelope was received empty. And I didn't hear it being discussed in the rejection today, which I was expecting it to come up at that point.
Did you empty envelopes?
There was a note from a poll worker on the envelope stating that the ballot had been run through the AccuVote machine on election day. Again, this is a question ballot envelope. Obviously, this ballot, since it was already flagged by the poll worker as a question ballot, should have been reviewed by the commission prior to it being able to be counted as a vote. The question ballot specifically means that the poll worker had a reason to question the voter's ballot.
So let's see if we can find that and see if we can figure out.
We have several.
We have a section that we didn't,
I'm sorry?
we have a section that we did not cover.
Oh, you have a group that's not on the
Of
spreadsheet?
the
that
empty
you guys have.
envelopes.
Are they all on the same issue?
Yes,
All
let me-
empty.
Just a second.
Empty.
Let
All
me
right.
look.
So let's start with this one.
I believe this one is unique in that it has a note on it specifying that the ballot was in fact run through an AccuVote machine. I believe it is unique in that.
The name of that?
Christy Gavin.
Yes.
So because of that reason, I believe for the integrity of the election, it's really important that we review the AccuVote tapes from that precinct. We count the ballots cast, make sure the numbers match, and review the registers to make sure there was not a ballot that was inappropriately cast without being reviewed by the commission that might have been an ineligible voter. So I think that needs to be, I challenge that should be reviewed.
And I doubt that's information we have readily available.
I have a question.
Unless you guys want to listen to this issue.
I have a question. Even if you did go back to that precinct and there were 620 ballots cast, and someone, if you've ever worked a precinct, you are given a ballot, you go to the question ballot desk, you sign a question ballot register, you are handed a regular ballot with an envelope like this. You go to the booth and you are instructed to put it back into this. You go to the booth, you vote your ballot, and then you go put it through the AccuVote machine instead of putting it back in this. How in the world do you distinguish out of 625 votes that went through that machine, which one was the question
So what
ballot?
happens is if you decide that that ballot actually went that direction, the evidence seems to suggest that it did.
Right.
That they put that through the machine.
Right.
And that it should be withdrawn. What happens is, in that precinct, they do what's called a proportional reduction, it's most likely the scenario, because they don't know how the person voted.
Right.
But in that precinct, if candidate A had 70% of the votes, candidate B had 30%, you would reduce A by 0.7 of one vote and B by 0.3 of one vote. And that's why last year, for example, if you looked at all the final results, you saw some refractions, because we had to go back and make these odd deductions.
Okay.
So, but the question is, this person is not registered, have you gone through the process of confirming if this person was in the wrong precinct? I mean, it's a question ballot, do we actually confirm that the information that this person is not in that precinct?
This one we did.
Let's see.
Can we look,
Do we-
look them up?
This is the person's name?
Yes. We have 3 ballots where that, do we do them individually or do we do
Well,
them as a
if
group?
they're all the same issue, where the ballot, the envelope is empty and a poll worker wrote in that they went through the machine.
Yeah, that is correct.
Then yes. But again, first step would be to confirm, I think, that
I'm looking at them
particulars?
right
Are they a
now.
registered voter? Is that from a precinct that's not their registered precinct or residing precinct? And Amanda's going to try to look at it.
Every single one of them were registered in the precinct where they resided.
Okay.
They're registered in that precinct and
reside in
they
the precinct?
reside in that
But what about
precinct.
their cast?
Where it was cast.
Yeah, at the bottom.
One is the same,
So-
two is the same, and one is different.
Okay, so two of those envelopes, the registered precinct, the residing precinct, and the voter precinct are all the same.
Correct.
So they should have never had a question envelope in the first place, I presume. Unless for some reason they didn't show up on the register.
Or their name changed.
Or name change.
Moved.
All right,
Not in the precinct register.
all right. So maybe, we have one other we have to come back to, right? The envelope that we need to find? Okay, so maybe these three, it's what, 10 to 9 right now? We got a little homework to do on those. And either she's going to be able to do that now, or we have to come back to it. Do you have any other, you said you had other
Yeah.
questions?
One of those other ones is Lorraine Estelle, correct? I did not catch the third name from my notes, but I do have one that you and with Lorraine Estelle.
That is, there's one here that is, there's no note from the voting, you want to take a look at those? There's no vote from the precinct that it was cast into the AccuVote machine. It's just no ballot is in the.
Is that this person, Lorraine Estelle?
Yes,
Okay, but there's no notation?
there's no
It's
notation.
just a blank envelope with no idea why?
Yep.
Okay.
And
And so-
the notation is name change, why she may have started a question ballot.
Oftentimes, may I
Yes.
say something? Oftentimes, these are used to re-register.
Okay.
And so she could have voted and then come back and use this to get her name changed.
Okay, but we don't know the
But we
checks that
don't-
cast
we
the
don't know
ballot,
that.
so
We
even
don't know.
if you rejected it, we wouldn't be able to make the argument that there's a ballot to be rejected in the proportional nature. We really don't know what to do with that one.
Correct.
So the problem with the challenge is typically what you're trying to do is get a ballot counted or not counted. But we don't have any evidence that there was a ballot cast. Well, there's an assumption that there was a ballot cast.
That's true.
Did she sign do we know that she signed the register or a register?
Check.
We could check.
We do not, yeah, we could check that. There it is not notated on the envelope that there was a register line signed.
I'm sorry?
This, Christie,
Okay, let's, hold on. What,
On Lorraine Estelle's.
okay, so on Lorraine, why don't we let Amanda look at Lorraine? She's got information for Christie. We'll come back to Christie in a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, Amanda.
Christie Gavitt moved within the precinct. So she was given a question ballot because the address listed in the precinct register did not match her current address at precinct 800. She was listed in the register at 1901 Powderhorn Circle, and she's now at 9615 New Haven Loop.
So both are within the precinct.
Well, it's notated on the envelope that it's both in the precinct, but I would have to confirm that. I can confirm it right now.
Why don't we handle this one? This one's easy.
Okay.
This one says, it's began, the only thing on this envelope is the last name of Alward, and then it was written, did not vote here, decided to vote at Lusac. It is an empty envelope.
Okay. Any challenge? Madam Chair?
Do I have a motion to reject it on the grounds of
Well,
empty
we don't
envelope?
have, we don't have
We don't have a
anything to
ballot.
reject or accept. It's
There's
just
no
an
ballot.
envelope.
What are we?
Maybe that's why they weren't on your list.
Maybe that's why what?
It
They weren't
wasn't
on the list.
Oh.
No ballot, how can you?
How about maybe what you do is just a motion to I don't know what you'd call it, to put it back in the folder where you maintain those, but to refile it, no further action, something like that.
Okay, that sounds great. Can I hear a
Okay.
motion?
I motion, we put it back, where?
Whatever you call your folder.
Okay, further action, no further action, and just file it.
I second the motion.
Vote to refile? No further
Vote
action?
8-0. You have an easy one like that?
No, the other one is Lorraine Estelle.
Okay, so we just have these two left.
And she has to be looked up in a
There's
register.
3. Yes, this one was not looked in a register.
What's your
Registered or retired.
third one? We haven't talked about that.
She has them over there.
Did you have any more about the honors too?
Not about empty ballots.
Do you have other challenges though?
I have a few other issues. Yes.
Through the chair, I already spoke about Christy Gavitt. William Miller was voted at precinct 960, registered at precinct 960, and resides in precinct 960. So I can't speak to what happened on election day, but he, by all appearances, was eligible to vote in precinct 960.
There's no notation about whether a ballot was.
It does say put ballot into AccuVote machine. So the ballot was put into the AccuVote.
Okay. Do you have a challenge to that one?
I do not, other than to say that I think it should be a continuing discussion that we try to prevent this from happening in the future.
Madam
I
Chair?
vote yes.
So, yeah, you do need to take action on this one. Okay, which is, you know, I guess in this case, presuming what the facts are as presented, which is that he's in the right precinct and the ballot was put through the machine, there's no challenge. You can make this decision that there's
Do I
no
hear a
further action required.
move that there's no further action required on this?
Just to file it.
Yes, to file that there's no action required.
I move that we file Mr. Miller's ballot envelope. There's no further action required.
I second the motion.
Vote yes?
Vote is 8-0.
And to speak to the last of the empty envelopes, Nicholas Cropper was registered at 7750 Bethany Circle. He is now at 2006 Tudor Hills Court. Prior, he was registered in precinct 845. He now lives in precinct 420, and he voted at precinct 865. I do not know if 420 and 845 are within the same district, but I can look that up right now.
And is there a notation on that one?
It says ballot was inserted in AccuVote machine.
Yeah.
420 and 845 and precinct 865 are all in the Midtown Anchorage Assembly District. So although all three numbers are different, he was qualified to vote in.
I move that we file this with no more action.
Is there a challenge?
Sorry, I just have to put this on the record that although the races might have been the same, it still doesn't mean he was eligible to have voted in the precinct he voted in. And that could throw off the counts and tabulations and the tapes, and I think it disrupts the clarity of the election.
Actually, I don't think it would. It would mean that in terms of looking at the precinct totals, they're not as perfect as they could be, but all the races are the same for each of those three precincts. So whichever one he was supposed to have voted in, he got the right ballot either, no matter what of those three. So the totals are all going to be correct in terms of races. And you go to look at the precinct by precinct numbers of how many people voted, that one's not exactly right, because it should have been in the precinct. But in terms of the races themselves, they'll be fine.
He got, it's the same ballot for all 3 precincts. Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we file this with no more action.
Second the motion.
Vote yea.
Vote is 8-0. Amanda has another one?
So this is the Christy Gavitt, where she was registered in 800, resides in 800, and voted in 800, but she moved within the precinct, so she voted a question ballot as a means to update the voter registration, but scanned the ballot instead of inserting it.
I move we file it with no more action.
Second the motion. Vote aye.
Yeah, you can sort of, do you want to continue your objection on that?
It will go through to the state, so her address is changed, right?
You can pull that copy, yes.
I would like this to be filed if it's just for record, yes.
Do you continue the objection?
In as so far as I think that the ballot that counts in total should be double checked, yes.
So what is that? Clarification, please.
We're just trying to notate which issues they still continue to object to. All right, did we take care of Lorraine, Estelle?
No, that's in my hands. This one needs to be looked up.
This one needs to be looked up on a
Yes.
register to see if she voted on a register.
Oh, so I have to go upstairs. At precinct 500?
Okay, while she's researching that one, then we can take on the next challenge.
I also just want to say, I do appreciate all the work you've done. I'm just wanting to put these things on the record for clarity so that when the election is looked at, we all know everything that happened. So it's just for clarity. I do have, I'd also like to review David Oshman in precinct 440. As our observers noted that in the database that we believe he was flagged as code UN, which we think means he is unregistered, and we think he should be checked in the database.
Okay. I actually don't know what the code UN means.
I don't
Off the top of my head.
It's on the database.
Yeah, she'll have to look it up. Do you have another one?
No, that's all.
Okay.
Isn't UN unknown? Isn't that how you're registered? I mean, isn't that your party? Isn't there a UN that's a party?
U is undeclared, yeah.
Oh, it's undeclared. Is UN undeclared? Is that a party? Undeclared?
No, undeclared is nothing.
It's a notation for party affiliation. In other words, yeah, you haven't declared for a party, but I don't know why it would be, where did you say it was on?
Where was it?
No, on the database, I believe under his status, one of the two status indicators.
Yeah.
And that might be just whether he has a party affiliation or not. I don't know. We'll
I
look.
don't believe so.
There is
need more information than just his name.
Just more than just his name? Identifier, shoot.
Not easily accessible. I would have to pile through all my notes. I do believe, I know the precinct that you filed in, I believe.
Oh.
That won't help me.
What precinct is it?
I believe it was 440.
No.
Usually UN means on the vote. But I can't very enough.
I'm going to change. Thank you.
It's just been squished.
I should have brought my own.
So.
Had it still.
She's got a shot while she's doing that. Go ahead, Amanda.
It's Lorraine Carmichael had a name change and she has signed the register under her name, Lorraine Carmichael, and this will be submitted to the state so that it can be updated with her new last name, Estelle.
So the precinct
It wasn't
all
in
matches
view.
up.
Yeah.
I move we file it with no further action.
Second the motion.
No continuing objection.
Vote yay.
All right, the vote is 8-0 on that one, and we're down to what may be the last one, right there. Let's look for that information. We don't have a, we don't have an identifier, but we have another way to find it.
Michael, is that what you said?
Can you write a suggestion down? The one that there's the UN.
Oh, no.
I would made one suggestion. Do you want me to write something down?
Just curious what that code
Instead of using the question.
Oh, okay.
Question ballot. It's not That would make more sense. Be less confusing.
So,
They have them there.
okay, she's gonna get called down because that, while she's doing that, David P. Osman, A-U-S-M-A-N.
And that's precinct 440, so I'm assuming
That's
the
precinct
same.
440. Original registration, 1986.
Where the UN, did you see it on the house? Did you see it on the? Yeah.
So there's no H in
Pardon me? We did not have that manual. Does it show the UN?
I did over there, you might get money for it, didn't you?
Is it dark?
Michael, can I ask you where you got the UN? Was it on the envelope? Was it?
No, the condition code when you pull it up on the render.
Oh, is it on red? Oh, and the UN is
It says condition.
I have that. If I need to.
That means registered. The PS means that you signed a petition in the past. And
I have the manual.
you're a youth.
Does it have?
Barbara went to call.
Pardon me?
Barbara went to call to find out what it is.
That's why it's asking. So by way of example,
Yes.
we looked me up.
Okay?
So my condition is RG, which apparently stands for the fact that I'm registered. My party affiliation, a separate area is U, because I'm not declared for any party. So the UN that he's asking about, to the extent it corresponds to registration or not, is a question. So I guess we'll see, I guess Barbara's trying to call something.
Should I go in the other room? I have a manual that has those.
She has a
Do you have the manual?
I have
For
a
the state?
photocopy of the state's manual with those codes on it.
Okay.
Should I go?
Is that
there?
what Barbara, was it, it's? Yeah, you have it handy.
I have to go with you, you can't be in there.
I know, I understand.
Yeah.
Could I do it?
I guess I'd rather deal with it tonight if we can.
Where are they going?
Do you have the key card? It's not in the party file spot. It's in the registration spot.
It looks pretty at ease at the moment.
Yeah, right. I don't think hang in there, guys. 8:30 will be here plenty of time.
Everything at work, nothing really at all.
It's only not
Yes.
certain.
Somebody's gonna say be here at 8.
Open it.
5,774, minus those 2 idiots. I thought there were 2, but I thought there were 6. I packed some and it's in my car. My
jacket's in my car for the meeting too.
Because I can't. My head's going. Yeah, that's what I heard. No, we're still trying to get it. I don't either, and you know, I was thinking about last year after I took a shower. So you never know. You can't afford to. Everyone says, no, it's unique. I'll go. Yeah, don't get carried away. No, that's what time I have to do. Oh, yeah.
Last year,
Not enough balance, yeah. And plus this challenge.
This
is how we know we come full circle last week.
I know. There you go.
I can't do anything. How?
The wine story and we're going to.
typically stay like tomorrow.
How late will you stay tomorrow?
On the way to Calgary.
Probably why they can't come out in the morning.
I have to walk over to my truck.
Just because I have people that will stay at my house.
Never mind.
Which one?
Trash.
It's assembly on the 16th, right? But that's the morning when it happens, so.
The great expectation.
How close are your bosses?
Somebody based on availability.
I'm not sure if I can figure out what
Set it up.
Okay, the commission's
Call to
ready
order.
Start again.
Hey.
What was the code that we got?
Through the chair, I contacted the Division of Elections, and the division notified us that UN means that a piece of mail was returned to them undeliverable.
Does that conclude our business? Are there any more challenges? Yes, that concludes. Undeliverable.
You need to actually take action, because he's
On-
made
oh,
a
okay.
challenge to
All right.
this person, and I don't know whether he wants to withdraw the challenge or not. If he does, then there's nothing for you to do. If he wants to maintain the challenge, then you need to.
Do you want to withdraw the challenge or maintain it?
That seems like a perfectly good reason to withdraw. Thank you.
Now we all know.
Once again, I don't think there are any other challenges, but I wanted to make sure I asked that question last time. All right, so it's back to you. I had mentioned it to Linda that if you wanted to, you could provide an opportunity for you to ask some comments. I hope that if you do that, that people will be nice to you, keep it very brief.
One minute.
1 minute. Any last 1 minute comments? Linda?
The only comment I wanted to make is, when I heard that she said about possibly investigating into some kind of, I don't even know, criminals, some kind of legal action against somebody who wasn't registered and who voted twice. And my first thought was that somebody like that, it's a good bet or a good possibility that they have some kind of mental illness problem. If that's
Some kind
what's
of what?
happening.
Mental illness.
Mental illness problem, or, Alzheimer's, or something along those lines. And my concern about jumping in and investigating something like that when last year there were lots of things that could have been investigated. I know that when you do something like that,
You force that person then to get some kind of legal counsel, you force them to spend a lot of money, and, you know, you'd have, I mean, that's, if there's like 2 people in the entire city that did that, which is, I think, what you determined here.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh,
I'm done.
we have found a couple more categories that we did not do. Here.
I'm sorry?
We have found a couple more categories.
All right, then, let's
Back
do it.
on task here. We have 3 people that voted twice. We have David Driscoll.
Can you, for the audience, explain what you mean by voted twice and what you're looking at?
Yes, I'm getting my mind around it here. Okay, we have Daniel Clark, who voted absentee and also at the poll. And we have identified him on the signed register as having voted twice. We,
Can you give a shout out to the precinct?
Precinct 570 is where this vote was cast. Yes, vote 570.
And you have a copy of the register.
And we have a copy of the register, both in 570. Okay, this is this gentleman, remember the letter? I will. Oh, excuse me. I'm tired. Gerald Schoon voted, he cast a ballot, and then he came in the next day and mentioned that he thought that it was the wrong ballot, and he didn't mention it that day, but he wanted to vote what he felt was the correct ballot and voted again.
In the precinct?
And the precinct is 605.
But those are absentee and person ballots. So
Correct.
It wasn't at the precinct.
Right. That's all in that place. Do we need to take these things separately?
Well, that was rejected.
Go ahead and take them separately.
Okay. Darrell Schoon, that's the one that
I was given 2 ballots.
Yes. Do I hear a motion?
I move we don't count this ballot.
Second the motion.
I'm sorry, is there any challenge to that? Okay.
Okay. Did I hear a second?
I seconded it.
I vote to reject this ballot.
Yes.
The vote is 8-0.
Daniel Clark voted an absentee ballot and also voted at poll. We have a signed line on the register. Do I hear a motion to?
Is there any challenge?
Any challenge?
Go
I
ahead.
move we reject the absentee in-person ballot of Daniel Clark.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I vote to reject.
The vote is 8-0.
Okay, I don't remember the. David Driscoll, this is the one he said voted number 2 ballot incorrectly and should have been number 21, precinct 140. We discussed this.
I'm sorry, can you be a little louder about what happened?
The note on this is that voted number 2 ballot incorrectly should have been number 21,
And that's a note by who?
the official. It's in the official section.
And I called her,
Which her?
the election official,
Okay.
and he voted the number 2 ballot. It went into the AccuVote machine. Then he decided he needed a number 21, so they gave him a 21 and a question ballot.
Okay, and which is the correct ballot?
Well, if one's been voted, I,
The one in the AccuVote machine.
It's precinct 140, district 1, it's 140 in all, where it was voted, where he's registered, and where he resides. It's all the same.
It's one of those split deals.
Yeah. Well,
How do you get through?
Reject.
I guess, so he shows up, he signs the register, they give him a ballot, he votes it, and says, oops. But who gave him, the question is, how did he know? Did the election officials screw up and give him the wrong ballot the first time?
Oh, because there was something he wanted to vote for. And after he put it through the, because I talked to her.
Yeah.
After he put it through the AccuVote machine, he went, oh, I didn't get to vote this issue, and it should be on there. So
So
she
he came back.
said, so she, you know, so he came back and said, what about issue so-and-so? And she said, that's on number 21. He said, well, I want that one.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we reject the second ballot.
Which is this ballot?
Yes.
The question ballot.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Of rejecting.
Hold on just a second. I see the vote's 8-0, but Amanda had a comment or question.
So ballot 2 is the South Anchorage, I can't remember if it's in Arza or out of Arza. Ballot 21, I imagine, has either a LRSA or a proposition that is just for one particular service area. So if he did not get to vote on that item that he is qualified for, that he came back and said, the commission could facsimile just that one race onto a ballot and scan that ballot and count that one race, and then he would be able to vote for that issue.
Or he could have realized it before he put it in the AccuVote machine.
Correct. So you could do either of those two things. If you decide to do the facsimile, you need to confirm that he was indeed eligible for that ballot 21.
That's what he's saying.
So this is, 140 is a split with LRSAs and all that kind of stuff?
Oh.
So.
She's nodding her head yes for the record.
Yes.
140 is the split precinct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, 140 is a one.
Madam Chair, is that something we need to figure out today, or can the commission take a vote saying that if ballot 21 is the one that the voter should have received, we can do a facsimile ballot for that one question that wasn't on the original one he put through, or do we have to figure that out right now?
What does it take to figure out whether 21 is the ballot he was entitled to?
Can you do that, Amanda?
I don't, yes, I can do your color.
Vicki?
Well, I have to figure out
Vicki?
where he lives. Yes.
Vicki?
Is my
Vicki?
Does anybody have the pretty
Excuse me,
color?
Joyce.
Vicki's down there.
I was gonna say, my inclination is that he should be allowed to have that vote accepted if the, precinct worker gave him the wrong ballot for that one issue. If the precinct worker gave him the wrong ballot in a split precinct and he went and voted this one, and there was an issue that he should have voted on, my feeling is that that particular issue should be counted by putting it on a facsimile ballot and feeding it through the machine for that particular issue.
Should he not have caught that and just asked for another ballot?
He did.
He did after he put it through. I understand that, but that's my feeling on that.
I think the process is that you can actually, if he didn't run it through the machine, right, you could say that this is.
Oh, yeah, that's a
would be
spoiled ballot. There is a spoiled ballot process. And your issue.
Isn't there an issue of timing as well, if we, like, the timely execution of our of running the votes through the machines and all that, and there's some.
We're gonna reopen the cards tomorrow for the precincts that have unscanned ballots, so we could reopen that and scan that one vote on that one issue to that card. It wouldn't, but
How you can get him to get the issue over the phone?
he voted on that ballot.
Oh.
There's a ballot in
We
the
have
board.
we have
Oh,
his
I-
vote, but we are then going to be opening the card and scanning one ballot. So then
And don't we have to determine?
one race, and then everyone will know how we voted.
And then also, we have to determine that he could vote that, right?
What's that?
We would do that before we scan it. We would determine his eligibility. But if
I would like to open this to a little discussion. To me, it's, as Peggy said, I kind of am going with Peggy, that he should have noticed that before he inserted it.
Really, responsibility
That's his
has to start
responsibility.
somewhere.
I mean, that's why we have spoiled ballots. And you're allowed as many
You're
spoiled
allowed
ballots as you
unlimited
want.
amount in the city.
You can vote 7 times.
Madam Chairman?
You get
Yes.
7 chances to vote.
Thank you. I was going to say, that doesn't sound right at all. You can have 7 different ballots and destroy 6 of them.
Madam Chairman, we just rejected one. We had a gentleman who voted at the library and then realized that maybe it was the wrong ballot, and he came back the next day, and we said, no, we reject it. So
You feel it's the same?
I think to be consistent, this is a very similar situation.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I think there was a motion on the floor that we
Yeah, I did.
reject this particular.
Okay. Did we have a second?
I second.
I vote to.
The motion is to reject.
Reject this,
Reject.
this,
The second ballot.
I'm sorry. I vote to reject this ballot, this second ballot.
The vote is 8-0.
we just rejected the other guy.
You're absolutely correct.
So this is this.
Oh, voted twice. Okay, and the last one is Ron, S-E-H-R-T. He is a convicted felon, which under code, he cannot vote.
I move to reject.
I move we reject this ballot.
I vote to reject this ballot,
The vote is 8-0.
and I think that's it.
That's it. I have one comment to make.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys.
Madam Chair, now's the time for, good time for a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Any objections?
Do I hear a second?
You're adjourned.
We're adjourned. All right.